podcast contains language and content that may not be suitable for younger audiences. Listener discretion is advised. There will also be spoilers for Serial Experiments Lain throughout the course of this episode. Please use caution in case we discuss a series that you haven't finished. Finally, the opinions expressed are those of the individual participants and may not reflect the Dub Talk podcast as a whole.
Welcome, dear listeners, to another episode of Dub Talk, where we cover the latest and greatest in English anime dubs. But not tonight, because the thing we're covering is old as hell.
Ouch!
We're starting out.
Regular
Rip off that Band-Aid. Let's go.
regular listeners will note that I made this same joke in the Wicked City episode because I'm a predictable human being.
I mean, at that one, you could argue that, no, it's not the latest, sure, but it could still be counted among the greatest. This one might not qualify for late or great.
The show, I would argue the show, though.
The dub, yeah, the dub might not be.
The dub, yes. The show would qualify, I think, in that regard.
Well, we will get into that.
Yes.
But unlike in Wicked City, we're not covering some late 80s sleaze. No, we're covering something much more classy and dignified. If the Criterion Collection put out anime, this is the kind of thing it would put out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We are friends, we are going back to the very, very end of the 90s. Back when history was over and we were all going to make money off the internet and live forever.
Before
what Halicon days those were.
Oh, man.
You remember starting your first webpage and thinking you're going to be rich off of it, and then they all failed by 2002?
You mean like how pets.com went under because it didn't occur to them that it's really expensive to ship things like, pet food because it's really heavy?
Exactly.
I remember Pet Stover Zoos.
It was a time.
The
folks.
good old days.
And,
You've unlocked a core memory in me now. How wonderful.
I'd be out here making Geocity jokes, but that's actually probably before me for my time. So,
Angel Fireman, that's the way to go.
Which dead web hosting service was your favorite, kids? Leave a comment
Post
below.
in the comments.
okay, here's an easy way to date yourselves. Like, what version of Windows were you guys using when you were kids?
I don't know what version of
in
Windows.
in 1990 in the late 90s, I think it was Windows 95 by that point, right?
Probably.
Here's the real question: which internet browser did you have?
Oh, Netscape, definitely.
There we go. That's what I had too.
That little lighthouse. That's my guy.
The little steering wheel icon for me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had a White House one. I don't remember what it was.
Internet Explorer.
The younger people listening to this are like, there was an internet before 2006?
Oh, for the younger people in this audience, this is going to be... I feel safe saying we're probably among the last generation who can watch a show like this without having to have a lot of context explained to them because we're old enough to remember all this crap when it was new.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you're probably wondering, what are we talking about? Well, that's very easy. We are talking about 1998's Serial Experiments Lain, directed by Ryutaro Nakamura, written by Shikai J. Kanaka, original character designs by Yoshitoshi Abe.
That's like the trifecta of the perfect artist right there.
Abe's a nice man, by the way.
Yeah. I have opinions that I will get to later.
Oh
Indeed.
boy.
Shout out to Mr. Nakamura, who passed away about 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, R.I.P. He did good shit. He's sorely missed.
Yeah.
He made the good version of Kino's Journey.
We won't talk about that other one.
No.
But anyway, I think, who are we, by the way?
Oh, yeah,
We're
sure.
just four idiots talking for like 5 minutes.
That's the question of the show, isn't it? You know, who am I?
Who am I really? Am I really who I am? Where am I?
Which version?
You're correct. Identity is very important to the show, and we should probably introduce ourselves.
Probably.
Hi, I'm Amon. I'm your host on this madcap ride. Over here we have Lilac.
Hello. Present day. Present time.
Exactly. Jet.
Present day, present time.
And Noah.
Under Lane's recommendation in one of the episodes, to avoid static electricity while being close to your computer, I'm going to be recording this episode with no clothes on.
Oh, good for you. I'm glad this isn't a visual medium.
No, and now I'm sad. You didn't do the thing either after Jet and I did it.
I thought it would be a good PSA. All you people out there who spend a lot of time in front of your computers, avoid static electricity. You should have the least amount of clothes on as possible.
I mean, in fairness, that's only related to if you're like doing computer repairs.
Which this lady absolutely is.
But you're not right now, so where's
You
your
don't know
pants,
that.
Noah?
I could be reformatting Twitter to actually use the original icon. You don't know.
Do I need to get Jenny in there to kick your ass and put pants on again? Like, what is happening?
Can't. I don't know. How would you do that?
I will figure it out.
Some Black Mirror stuff going on around here. Anyways.
Yes, we're your hosts. If you want to click off now, maybe do that and take this as an opportunity to escape while you still can.
Because once you're in the rabbit hole, you're not coming back out.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know what the final time on this is gonna be, but it's probably not gonna be short. I feel like something tells me deep down. Anyway, so we are your crew. We are covering Serial Experiments Lain. What's it about? Well, Lane's hard to summarize because it's artsy and confusing on purpose. But there's a plot summary on ANN, so let's try that out and see if you can suss out what's going on. Lain Iwakara appears to be an ordinary girl with almost no experience with the computers, yet the sudden suicide of a schoolmate and a number of strange occurrences conspire to pull Lain into the world of the Wired, where she gradually learns that nothing is what it seems to be. Not even Lain herself. And then it further descends into madness, discussions of identity, and God, and conspiracy, and people just dying abruptly, and guys in black suits.
Yeah, long story short, this is basically just like a bunch of thoughts about what people kind of thought and or feared the internet would be like in the 1990s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and unfortunately they were largely right in the most depressing way possible.
Yeah.
In the sense that the internet would exacerbate people's sense of loneliness and depression, certainly, by making us all connected and realizing that we all have a lot of the same emotions. Not resolving any of those emotions, just feeling everyone's emotions.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot to see this thing from 1998, and it's like, wow, they just picked everything great and terrible about the internet right from the beginning. Shit.
No, yeah, it's so weird. Like,
yeah.
Oh man.
There are maybe one or two boomerisms in here, but otherwise it's pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay, boomer, if you're like a young person at the time?
Because they had no idea at the time. They were just going off of, like, the internet had been publicly available for about 10 years at this point, and they were just like, look, we're in this dystopian cyberpunk-induced world, and keeping in mind that this came out near the end of the century, so people were already kind of doomsday cultish about the end of the world coming up. So it's not like they were inaccurate.
That part.
Millennium Fever.
Yeah. It's very interesting how some of the themes and viewpoints of technology from Lain, like, I had this realization. It's still prevalent even now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like we should probably preface this by saying we might actually end up talking more about the show than the dub, but
It's very possible.
Yeah,
which isn't a bad thing. It's also not a good thing for why we're here, but I digress.
We will definitely get into that, but I think that's a valid point we're definitely going to end up talking about because of what the show is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad they did dub this, though. I'm glad that This seemed like an unlikely kind of thing to have been dubbed in the time of the shonens and the magical girls shows that were being dubbed at the same time. And this little random oddity got in a dub in a time when that wasn't a thing usually being dubbed.
I mean, to be fair, the hardcore anime home video market was like, I mean, it was still kind of in its infancy, but it had been around for like a few years by that point.
Yeah, it does feel very telling that like circa like the late 90s, early 2000s, stuff like this could get like a dub.
Right.
I mean, so, like if this came out now, like, I mean, to be honest, things like this don't come out nowadays. I was trying to think of a show that is like this, and the only show for the last like 5 years I can point to that even vaguely resembles this is like Sunny Boy, and that's mostly just that it also is not interested in easy answers.
No,
than, like, any particular thematics. Like that's it. Like it's just Sunny Boy.
Yeah, Lain is a very like unique show in that regard.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of abstract stuff in anime anymore.
There's no money in being this ambitious on TV these days. It's very tragic.
It's very upsetting, honestly. I wish there would be like. I wish, like, nowadays there would be some of those ambitious projects more and more often.
I mean, we do get them. It's just they're very different from this particular kind of show.
I feel like the studio that would pioneer a project like this nowadays would be like your Triggers or your Pineapple Jams, like some very fringe studios that already do like struggle with commercial success, but the people who like what they do really like what they do.
I do appreciate what you're saying here, Noah, but Trigger is probably not the example to bring up.
But I'll say Trigger is not a good example for this. Trigger's
so?
not the good example. No.
Trigger is struggling with commercial success.
I mean, when you look at Trigger, you have wow, I'm about to forget their fucking catalog. You have like Kill la Kill, Jet, help me.
Academia, you have new Animal.
I was thinking it would be like the only one of their like anime originals I could think of that like maybe had performed, like maybe Brand New Animal and maybe no, I can't even say Panty and Stocking because I mean that's gonna get second season anyway. So.
But I'll say Panty and Stocking, you can't even say that anymore because it's sequel is happening, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I say that in the sense that they're big retro fans. Trigger is full of fanboys of like retro mecha anime, so they tend to make stuff that not only pulls on the style of older stuff, but also the themes. Like Little Witch Academia was like very heavily inspired by rubber hose animation from the 60s, or their robot stuff is super inspired by super robot stuff from the 70s. Whatever studio you think could make something like this, Amon is right. It's true. We don't really have a studio that makes stuff like this anymore. That is, not only is it about retro computer and internet lingo, but it's also told in a very avant-garde, surreal, what the hell is going on kind of way. This is not a linear plot kind of show. It is like a book with different chapters about different topics that are all connected by the theme of the internet is going to change society. It is going to interconnect the people, but in fact, people were always interconnected. And so now the internet is just bringing us back to the way things used to be.
Is it bad that when you were saying the internet is for, my brain instantly went to Avenue Q?
Yes, it is.
Theater fans.
Yes, it's very bad.
How
dare you, theater person? How dare you think of the internet is for that thing that it absolutely is for?
Anyway, we've been here for quite a few minutes. We probably should.
Yeah, I am enjoying this conversation. We should get back to why we're originally
We should.
Here. You're right. Take it away,
We're gonna
Amon.
be doing this. We're gonna be doing this several times tonight. I can already sense it. Oh no.
Oh, you bet. All right, so since we are, of course, discussing the dub, let us first talk about the people who made the dub, our director and scriptwriters. Our director on this project is Leah Sargent, known for directing things like Big O Season 2, the dub for Perfect Blue, and the original version of Trigun.
Okay.
And scriptwriting, the first episode was written by Quint Lancaster, and the rest of the season was written by Gavin Glennon. Quint, you might know for writing stuff like Armitage 3, the Ghost in the Shell movie, and Giant Robo, and Glennon wrote stuff like Outlaw Star and Gundam Side Story 0079 Rise from the Ashes video game, because he didn't actually write a lot. He was mostly an actor, and apparently these days he's a location scout.
Oh, okay.
Also, this is old enough. There will be some pseudonyms in here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have notes on who they are, but see if you can guess.
Yeah, I was about to say, one of the ones we just mentioned, like, it's not even a real pseudonym. It was a name he went by just because I thought it was fun. Like, I know this because I researched the studio we're talking about tonight.
Oh yeah.
And the reason for the pseudonyms is because of union shenanigans, right?
Yes,
Actually, this does sort of predate union shenanigans. Some of these were just like, they had
What,
them.
just goofs?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's curious.
Yeah, like most of these actors were not union yet, so...
So there's not going to be any, like, Henry Smallballs or anything like that in here?
One of them's kind of funny, which we'll get to in the next section.
One of them is a good
none
one.
of them are. One of them's kind of funny, but most of them are just like names.
Okay, fair enough.
Nothing too jokey.
So, can I just break the ice by saying, I respect that Leah, Quint, and Gavin gave it their best shot. I don't think they quite knew what they were doing.
Yeah, it is interesting to talk about this, because we didn't mention the studio by name, but this was done by Zero Limit / Animes, and if you don't know who they are, they're one of the earliest anime dubbing houses in the business, like right there during the whole start of the home media boom. In fact, there's a little video we did about them a little while back. You might want to watch if you have time.
It's true. You should go watch it.
You should. The guy who put it together put a lot of work into it.
Oh yeah, Jet did a thing.
They were around for quite a while, and they made some of what would go on to be considered some of the best sons of all time. But this is a little bit before that. I actually didn't look up exactly when this stuff was made, because I want to know if this predated Bebop or not, and it turns out it did. This stuff came out around 1999, and I don't know exactly when the Bebop dub would have necessarily been recorded, but I do know the air date was like early 2001, so yeah, this is a little bit before Bebop at least. A little bit before they quite hit their stride, but yeah.
Now, even if they had hit their stride, though, I'm going to argue that because Lane's dialogue-focused discussions about the evolution of humanity, the interconnectivity of the internet, the just society in general, that there wasn't really a prior dubbed project for them to compare this to, so they were kind of flying blind in terms of how to direct the actors, how the tone to strike with the performances, and how to write the dialogue. Like, the dialogue, from what I've seen from the closed captioning, is very literal, because there's not a whole lot of room for liberal interpretation in the script.
Yeah.
I would take a slightly different approach in that I do think this is a good dub for what Lane is. It's just Lane is not a very actor-friendly show.
Yeah.
This is not something that's relying a lot on high quality. Well, there's one performance that would actually really sing a lot as memorable, but it's very talky, it's very thinky. This has way more in common with some pretentious art film that Criterion would license in this country than a lot of anime.
Is it pretentious?
I'm saying people would call it pretentious, not that it is pretentious.
Yeah, I can see people calling it pretentious.
I think it's very good at what it does. I would not call it pretentious. There are definitely people who have called the show pretentious because they were bored.
I wouldn't call it so pretentious. I think it does more or less stale what it's aiming for.
So as a fun side note to kind of give a little bit more insight on the whole recording timeline for this, I did look up Bebop for shits and giggles. So the first DVD set for Lane came out, according to ANN, July 13th of 1999. The oldest record for Bebop that ANN has listed is actually a VHS copy, VHS number 2, which was released in November 23rd of 1999. So you could realistically say that both of these could have been recorded simultaneously together.
If I remember correctly, none of the regulars for Bebop show up in this cast at all. So there's a good chance that there could have been some simultaneous.
No,
Nope,
you're wrong.
you're
There's one.
correct.
There's at least one.
There's at least one in here.
A second, but we're not talking about him.
One who is very important to the Bebop dub, in fact.
Yes.
And there's a second one in here that we're not talking about him today, but he's also in here.
So basically,
it's none of the leads, but there are some major characters who have a little bit of overlap.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so do you guys? Do you think? I know Amon, you said you think this is well done enough for what Lain actually is. Does that make it a good dub?
Well, that's an interesting question.
Yes, it is. I want your honest answer, man.
Yes, yeah.
I'm a big believer in the idea that obviously I put it this way. There's a good dub in the sense of is it the appropriate dub for the show?
Okay.
Which I think this does succeed on. But there's also Wizard Barrister is garbage, but the dub's really entertaining. Independent of the quality of the show. And I would say that is also a good dub, even though it is mostly that it is punching up something that is not very interesting by itself.
I remember vaguely liking Wizard Barristers.
I'm sorry, that was just the first one I pulled out of something we covered in the very early days that I never watched that seemed like it was mostly worth watching for the dub. What's a better example? The Show Means Sample is garbage, but the dub's very entertaining. The dub's very entertaining. The show itself
yes, there it is.
Oh, no, when I was talking Wizard Barristers, I was mostly talking about the show, though I do remember there was at least a 10-minute sequence that was just unfinished animation for some reason, which was really good at the time.
Oh my god.
There we go. But I would argue both of those are examples of good dubs, but one of them is much more reliant on being an appropriate dub for the show overall, and the other one is the dub entertaining to listen to by itself.
Yeah.
In that regard, it's a slow, methodical, philosophical show. That dub is probably not going to be very interesting, in terms of performance. Per se.
My feelings here are from a technical standpoint, this dub is rough. And I would say product of its side, but again, as we mentioned before, anime does go on to have a pretty strong track record, and this isn't that far off from Bebop, so I feel like it maybe could have been stronger. But at the same time, I have a hard time imagining what a stronger version of this would sound like, so I don't know.
I mean, if you've heard Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, you have at least some experience with...
Okay, it's funny you say that because this is also the same studio that would go on to do that, but we're still definitely a few years off from that one.
It is, and half the cast in this is young characters, whereas standalone complex is mostly adult characters. There's a couple of adult characters who monologue in this, but it's also carried by Lane's performance, the kid characters, the Alice character, the ones who we're going to talk about in a bit here. I'll say that they cast characters in English to sound pitch-wise very close to their Japanese counterpart, and I feel like they were trying to mimic the sound of the Japanese in English, and that's why it might sound a little more awkward, because nowadays we don't really do that. We might try to match the pitch of the Japanese, but we know that English has its own syntax, its own rhythm, its own way of sounding natural. So when you have flat line reads that have awkward pauses in it, William Shatner, we know that that's not how you're supposed to do it.
It reminds me a little of a comment Jacob Chapman once made about the dub for Fooly Cooly, which in his estimation, the dub and the Japanese for Fooly Cooly are functionally identical.
Yeah.
They have the same rhythm and feel to it. I feel like you could probably make... I haven't ever seen this in Japanese. I don't know. I've probably seen it once in Japanese, but I don't remember it very well. I feel like you could probably make a similar argument about this, though.
Yeah.
Just because I don't think it's a show that lends itself very well to a lot of creative localization just because of what it is and what it's trying to do. Yeah.
I don't know what their inspiration was. If they had direction from the Japanese, so it's make it sound like this. Or if they had some nerd on staff who was necromancer is the coolest thing ever. You gotta make it sound like this. I don't know.
I don't know. I try to think how involved Pioneer would be on the Japanese side, because I know they did eventually try to do Gideon, but I don't know exactly when that happened.
Yeah. I think part of it's also just how the show is written. To use Standalone Complex as an example, there's a lot of very strongly defined characters in Standalone Complex to grapple on too. I'd argue a lot of the characters in Lane are, if not flat, they are intentionally just kind of loosely sketched on purpose. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that makes your job a lot harder as an actor.
Yeah, I would say in general there are like 2, maybe 3 characters who matter enough as far as like actual performance goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are people here who are often kind of like, you know, ciphers or avatars, like that's intentional. You know, that's not a flaw. That's a feature, not a bug, as they say in computer talk. But that does not necessarily lend for interesting dub work, which is what we cover.
Yeah, and again, for the time period, not really having a template to compare it to, I do have to give them credit for getting through the whole thing. Like, I'm in my hand holding all 4 volumes of the Genion release and just thinking it would have been so easy for them to get like halfway through this and being like, we have no idea what the hell we're doing. We're just gonna stop right now.
That was me.
Well, that was an interesting failed experiment. Time to spend our money on something else.
Absolutely.
That was me while attempting to watch this. God damn.
Well, we're glad we got to finish this.
Yeah, can I just
Go on.
y'all have been talking for a minute.
Yeah.
So, I'll admit that this is the first time I have ever fully been able to complete this show. Noah got mad at me when I said in our group chat when we put this together, wait, you've never finished the show before? Fuck no, I have not. And I remember exactly why. This show, I highly advise against marathoning it straight through.
Absolutely not.
Highly advise against it. Because I'm pretty sure what happened to me the first time is I got maybe halfway through the show while trying to marathon it, big mistake on my part, and then stopped, did like a bunch of other things, got busy, completely forgot what the fuck I just watched, and just never went back to it.
Oh, yeah.
If there's a show, best experience like a week at a time.
Yeah, I ended up doing this, oh my god, and even Andrew will fucking tell you. I ended up doing at least 3 episodes in a sitting, starting like a week or 2 before, just to try and get like ease myself into it. Like by halfway through the show, I'm like, fuck, babe, I gotta go watch Lane, don't I? He's like, yeah, you do. I'm like, I don't want to right now, because
it's like it's your fucking penance or something.
I know. So this is not a knock against the show, because I really think there are some good, like really interesting elements to it, but the fact it is such a slow burn, such a slow burn that it, and if you're not like really invested or into this kind of like look into like the different themes of technology, the philosophies of it, even some of the psychological elements, you're gonna like turn this off almost maybe after like 2 episodes, maybe 3 at max, like, and then unfortunately for the modern day anime viewer, you're not gonna like this dub. It is.
No, I'm just trying to imagine some poor TikTok addicted teen trying to watch this thing. That must be like it may as well be in gibberish. Right?
This is definitely a very. This is definitely a show you can't.
No,
both because it's very obtuse, and also just because it's not. There's definitely much more uncomfortable things in anime you can watch, but like. Mm-hmm. There's definitely some stuff where it's like, yeah, you gotta sit that afterwards.
Yeah, this show, probably for modern day anime fans, is not as easily digestible. I think if you're looking for a certain category of viewer that might actually be into it, is more of like the art house crowd, if that makes sense. Given what the show is, I feel like that specific crowd will eat this up all day long. But yeah, it's such a slow burn. It's very difficult to get through, especially on your first watch. The story itself can sometimes be very fucking confusing. Mm-hmm. So you're going to lose some pieces on the first watch, like I did. And then the dub has not aged well at all. It has not. And I think a lot of it comes down to, because I've never watched the Japanese before, but I can imagine, given the circumstance of when this was around the time for recording, to which I dug up 2 more shows for shits and giggles that would have been recorded around this time. I dug up Trigun, which was released like in the early 2000s. Like the first set came out in 2000, and then I also looked and same director. Yeah, you're right. And then I also dug up another show that kind of has maybe as close to a feel to Lain as humanly possible, that also has a dub and came out in Japan the same time, Boogie Pop Phantom. Boogie Pop Phantom, the first VHS copy of this, of the English dub, came out in 2001. So, while it came out a few years after Lain did, it's the closest thing, and I think the original Boogie Pop Phantom kind of suffers some of the same problems that Lain's dub does. But Lain's dub, I think it's kind of a product of its time. The writing is as close to a one-to-one translation as humanly possible. I think only minor things were adjusted, probably for the sake of like lip flaps and context and localization, which is fair. I can give it that much. It stayed as true to what I think it easily stays as true to the original source material as possible, which in this case, you need to have that. 100% you need to have that, because the second it goes off the rails and it divulges from the original, it's going to be even more confusing. Let's be real.
Well, hard part
I think
of,
a lot of...
like, Lain's difficulty in understanding it is that there's obviously philosophical questions that it's trying to address,
right,
and it's trying to tell a story at the same time. So the hard part for the viewer is, what part of this is the creators kind of sermoning about the future of humanity and the psyche and kids being manipulated, and then what part of it is the story part of it?
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces and like points in the story, and personally for me, with this again being the first time I fully watched this, sometimes some of those elements, it seems like it's too clustered together. Like sometimes it seems like there's too much, weirdly enough, that it kind of loses itself. Like the main story actually loses itself a touch because of that. There were points during my watch where I was thinking like, I can't tell if this is trying to have an actual storyline or if it's just an episodic kind of show, because some of the individual episodes, at least from like the early onset and maybe until at least halfway or 3/4 of the way through, seem to have individual like focused stories. You know what I mean? So it struggles a little bit, I think, in what it wants to do, and the main story kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. And then yes.
There are definitely a couple of like major story beats, but they aren't like really explained in that much detail.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're comparing this to the art house. Something for the art house crowd is very accurate.
Yeah.
I definitely watched like the one that always springs to mind because I watched it in college is an old French movie called Last Year at Mirambad, which like it's 3 hours long. None of the main characters have actual names because that's not really important to the kind of like movie it is. And on some level, it's a lot more about just kind of soaking in the ambiance and the thematics than like there is a story, there is a structure to it, but that is not what's important. And I don't think this is quite that far in that direction, but I think that's part of it. And also, it's not a show that's very interested in holding your hand as a viewer necessarily.
Right.
On the one hand, it trusts you to be smart enough to figure it out, but it also means that until you're there, you're kind of on your own.
Right. It took me quite a bit to get an understanding of some of the pieces of what it's doing, but I at least was able to like discern, again, those themes of like technology and its effects. I was able to discern some of the philosophical, like existential issues, and the sense of self that Lain goes throughout the course of the show, especially towards the latter half. There are pieces that I was able to put together. It's just also some of those same pieces sometimes occasionally get lost with some of the other story elements in there, which is kind of a shame. And then I would have to agree with how the dub was directed and how the performances sound. Again, I've not watched the Japanese, but considering the time, about to say, like, about to say that was gonna be my assumption, considering like where we are in in terms of like the timeline when it comes to like anime dubbing history. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where it's not taken completely seriously, I guess, as like you can turn this into a very good product and actors will be able to like shine and make these roles their own. It's more of an imitation of what the Japanese is for a good portion of the time. And again, with Bebop being around the same time as Lain was likely produced, being the trendsetter at the time to kind of help change that a bit. Like, it's a good show. I'm just sad that the dub doesn't hold up.
Paddle harder. Paddle harder. There's a whole lot that we're going to get into it with the characters, but there's definitely, I think what all of our discussions boil down to is there's a disconnect between what the show was trying to do, what it was trying to say, and how much of that actually gets communicated to the viewers in the span of 22-minute episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for like 13 episodes period.
Anyway, we've been talking for a while. We probably should get into characters.
I mean, to be fair, I feel like this is where this and final thoughts are going to be the meat of the episode anyway.
Oh, probably. Yeah. Probably. Like, being able to discuss more of the show itself kind of helps lean more into, like, the discussion of the dub itself, to be honest.
Indeed.
I do have one question for Jet before we move on, is that you talked about how there was one writer for the first episode and then a different one for episodes 2 through 13. First writer, a lot of experience in sci-fi stuff like Artigic and Ghost in the Shell. And then the second writer, more TV series-based writer who is actually doing location work nowadays. Did anywhere of your research, did it say that that was intentional to have one writer for the first episode and a different one for the rest? Or did the first writer just kind of couldn't crack it in the first one and decided, I can't do this, and pass it off to somebody else for the rest of the show?
I don't know. I mean, we're talking about that first writer was pretty important as far as the studio dynamics go. So, I'm trying really hard not to just like.
Oh, you can say his name. That's fine. I'm doing this as a gimmick.
Okay, all right.
It's Kevin Seymour, folks.
Yeah, it's Kevin Seymour. He's like literally the head of animes or head of animes.
Can we get like Can we get like an Ace Attorney sound effect in here? Kevin Seymour. Whoop.
I mean, but I don't know. I guess it's just I don't know. I guess he maybe wanted to try experimenting with writing with a bit, and then I guess it's decided to hand it off to someone else because he was working on something else. I don't know.
All right, so that's just speculation.
I mean, I imagine he's probably working on quite a few things besides this at the time. So
okay,
yeah, I find it plausible that possibly he wrote the first episode kind of as a sort of like here is how we want the show to work.
Yeah,
and then because he's doing a lot of other stuff on the side, he then moves it on to another writer who's going to pick up that baton and kind of go in that mode.
Okay,
I can see that. Yeah,
especially given as we know, like I don't think this is a show that's very like localization friendly to begin with. I could easily see this kind of thing of like, okay, this is going to be a pretty rigid adaptation just because of what the material requires. Like, we can hand this off to someone else.
Okay,
it doesn't need the kind of deft touch that like I can't think of something Kevin happened to write off the top of my head, but like something where like, you know, oh, we want to take a little more time and care because there's more stuff to balance, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin Seymour primarily has been known as an ADR director. He hasn't done a ton of writing. I'm just looking over everything.
Yeah.
But you probably are right where it was one of those things where it's like, here, this is how we want this show to go writing wise, have at it. That probably sounds like the most logical reason for it, to be honest.
Maybe we should see if Gavin Glennon has a public-facing email address and we can ask.
We'll check out the site.
Oh
and
my
it'll
God.
come back and it's like, I'll be honest with you, dude, I do not remember. That was 2 decades ago.
I gotta admit,
Yeah.
I had the same thought. I was thinking about like, do we reach out to like, because I know Leah has like a public Facebook group, and I was like, do we reach out and ask questions? But oh, sorry, what?
I was just to say there's probably one other person who you might be able to reach out to, but
yeah, we're just speculating at this point, but about a almost 30-year-old tub.
25 to be exact.
Exactly,
Yes.
25. Which, by the way, I don't think you mentioned this in the intro, Amon. Why are we doing this
Oh
particular
yeah,
show?
we're doing this episode because it's Lane's 25th anniversary, and I wanted to talk about it.
Yay!
You're saying that if we didn't do it this year, we wouldn't get around to it until 5 years in the future, because we're not allowed to do 26
Well, about that, but we'll get to that when we talk about where you can watch the show.
Oh boy!
All right,
All right. On that note, do we want to talk about our first set of characters?
please.
Yes, please.
All right. Our first set of characters. There's like 24 minor characters in this show who all have varying levels of importance. I've picked 3 of some note because I thought they'd be interesting to talk about as kind of a general representative. First off, we have Taro. Taro is a kid who hangs out at a dance club in Tokyo called Siberia. That's Siberia, like cyber area. It's great. He's into computers. He hangs out with a pair of other kids. He gets to kind of know Lane, who eventually finds out that he's part of this like hacker group that's loosely kind of based on sort of a real fake hacker group. And he kind of helps out with her. They get up to some stuff. It's all very obtuse. And next up we have a guy named Masami Irie.
Oh boy.
This
His
asshole.
backstory is that he used to work for a company that made this chip you can put on computers that allows you to link up with the internet, which is called the wired in this world. Basically, without having to use like an interface, just your brain is jacked directly into it. Basically,
It's before fucking Sword Art Online becomes a thing.
yeah, exactly. This is the OG version from like actual cyberpunk fiction type stuff. And then, basically, long story short, he's clearly up to something. He gets fired. He apparently dies, but it turns out he uploaded his brain into the Wired, and now he's just kind of hanging around as a guy proclaiming himself God.
I am God. Nah, no, you're not, buddy.
He has philosophical discussions with Lane and also some conflict because she thinks he's kind of full of it.
He really is, though.
I mean,
Yeah.
she's correct. He just doesn't like that.
You don't need a body, bitch. Do you really think that? You want to try again, friend?
I love that they predicted the extremely tedious singularity discourse that was all the rage when I was in college. Like, this show really figured out everything about the internet.
I mean, to be fair, this was what, 1990?
1998.
Yeah, the show was
okay,
like-
I guess.
1998, so Ava was like a year old, so like they had inspiration.
Yeah, then they flat.
No.
their
The singularity in this context is the idea that once you hook enough computers up together, they'll all become sentient.
Okay.
That's the singularity.
Oh, that's
Oh,
different.
singularity theory. Got it.
And this leads into this whole thing about people wanting to upload their brains into computers so they can live forever, and it all just comes across as a lot of middle-aged people who don't want to die. It's a little sad.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Those same people
anyways.
would, in the modern era, they would be trying to harvest young people blood to live longer.
Absolutely, like same genotype. And lastly, we have a character who shows up constantly, even though they don't really have a character at all. It's Lane's Navi, who talks to her constantly, and for a good chunk of the show, seems like the only real friend she has.
Hello,
Just her fucking laptop talking to her.
So basically,
Hello,
it's,
Lane.
it's Siri before Siri existed.
Pretty
much, yep.
much.
God dang it, my
Pretty
phone
much.
just listened to that. Hold on a second.
I might want to turn it off. You don't want to be getting notified.
Thankfully, my Alexa tablet is currently in the other room, so it's not going to hear.
Hey, Lilac, Alexa, could you please order a pizza? That's one pizza sent to Stephanie's house.
Did we mention that this show is painfully timely still?
Yes.
I remember my parents do keep trying to fool around with the Alexa every now and then. I do make a habit of getting it turned off.
Aw, that's cute. That's adorable.
Anyway, so here are our minor characters, so we can talk about the minor characters. Who's playing them? Well, I'll tell you. Taro is being played by Ian Hawke, who's known for such characters as Rush Ren in Bastard, the old one from the 90s, not the one that's on Netflix
Yeah, the
now.
original.
Oh, okay.
The original 6-episode OVA.
Yes. Koenma from not the Funimation Yu Yu Hakusho, but the movie that I think Media Blasters dubbed it. Was that it?
I saw that one a few times.
That one. The one that I think Funimation still does not have because, of course
Rights
not.
and stuff.
And probably the thing I know them best for, Jim Hawking in Outlaw Star.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's the voice I heard the entire time I was listening to it. So I was like, man.
Me too. It's just like that's Jim.
Meanwhile, I know them more from like 2000 stuff. One specific 2000 scene in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to make y'all angry. I haven't watched Outlaw Star yet.
Oh, you should fix that.
I
It's
need
a
to
fun
fix
time.
that. I do.
I'm
I've been
not-
meaning to like buy it since it was like licensed, rescued, and then re-released. So I just
Honestly,
haven't gotten to buying it.
Honestly, that's another show that, honestly, it might not sit well with modern viewers. Like, you have to be in a certain mindset to watch retro like cell animation from the 90s to really get into it.
I feel like modern anime fans might get into Outlaw Star a little bit more than Lane, though.
Nonsense. Getting modern anime fans in Outlaw Star is easy. You just tell them that it stars a big man whore, and they'll all come flooding to go watch
He
it.
stars a himbo, and they're good.
It stars
Do you want a
Space
slutty
Dandy.
man with no sleeves? Well, we have a show for
Here
you.
you go. Here's Mr. Himbo.
And they'll say, but wait, does he tell people to bite him in every episode? And we're like, oh boy, I got a show
he
for
does.
you.
Fun fact about Ian Hawke that I learned during this research. This is a pseudonym for an actress named Brianne Siddall, who almost exclusively voices little boy characters, which I did not know about.
Okay. I was wondering when you were going to bring that up, because I am very familiar with Brianne Siddall. I mean, you've heard her do a lot of characters in the 2000s. Specifically, if you grew up with the Digimon franchise.
Thank you. Yep.
Kalibon in Tamers and Tommy in Frontier. And full disclosure, this will not be the last time we talk about Digimon. I'm going to bring it up again for a very important reason.
Wait, hold on a second. Jet, you're
Yay.
telling me that we're going to talk about a show about people in a digital world on the Lane episode.
I will be looking
Scandalous!
it up, but probably not for the reason you are expecting it. So.
How scandalous.
Sorry, you were saying Amon.
Yeah.
Next up, playing Masumi, we have Sparky Thornton.
Yeah!
There's the
Sparky
pseudonym.
is not his real first name. I'm sure you can probably conclude who it actually is.
Gee, I wonder.
Paper-thin pseudonym.
So many Sparkies in the voice acting world.
I really want to know how this one came about, but anyways, they are.
We'll have to
known-
ask him one of these days.
He is known for playing Blackjack in Blackjack in the movie. He is Ken Sanada in Dual Parallel Trouble Adventure, another show I infrequently watched on the late night tech TV anime slot back in the day.
Nice.
And he plays Count Cagliostro in the manga video dub of Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro.
Can I just say something before you go to the next one?
Yeah, sure.
Sparky Thornton has another fucking pseudonym. You want to know what it is?
Oh, is it Rusty?
No.
What is it? Remind me.
Bubba Chow?
That's another one? That's not the one I thought you were going to say.
No, I'm just looking through Bubba Chow. The only times he used it, though, is for Lagrange the Flower Rene and Magnetic Rose. That's it.
Stephanie, I really thought you were going to reference his Oscar-winning performance as Spanky Roberts.
Oh, I hadn't gotten that far. There's also Sparky Allen, Sparky Roberts. He has a few. I got the Bubba Chow, and I just lost my garbage.
Meanwhile, I think Ron Allen is the one I probably know off the top of my head.
Yeah, Ron Allen's another one.
You sure these names weren't for union reasons? You sure about that?
Okay. I'm sure the later ones were, but this one was probably not.
I do know an actor we're not talking about here is using his non-union alias in this, so I do think that might be. I think for some of them we are seeing at the origin of their non-union name, like they're hoping to be union at some point, so I'm gonna record under a pseudonym.
Okay.
Kind
Probably,
of a deal.
yeah. That would make sense.
Union, you're right. Okay.
Yes, so I think that's probably what we're seeing in at least some of these instances of like I don't want to fuck myself over preemptively, so I will record under a fake name.
You were in Serial Experiments Lain. Denied.
Whoops.
And last, Lane's Navi is being played by Melissa Williamson, who's known for playing Erd in Ah My Goddess the movie, Julia in Cowboy Bebop, and Jura Beza Eldon in Vandred. All right, feel free to talk about these characters or any other just random no-name characters who showed up in the show that you found interesting.
Sparky Thornton.
Goes without saying, like, all three of these actors are still very active in the industry to this very day, and
Yep.
you can definitely tell into performances. These are probably the best of the side characters.
They definitely have more flavor in their voice.
Oh, 100%. I think especially... I get to call him by his... I'm calling him by his fucking pseudonym. This is fucking great. Sparky. Sparky Thornton. It's his performance as Masumi Eri. It's very interesting, like, because obviously Mr. Thornton has done like tons of stuff over the years, and very, very notable roles too. So going from the ones that I can hear off the top of my, like, here in my head, and going to Masumi Eri as this self-proclaimed god of the Wired, like, there are, like, his performance was actually very intriguing, and it kind of went in some moments of where it was very haunting, especially when he has his conversations with Lane in the last, like, third of the show, and he's talking about some of those philosophical things we've been discussing, like the idea of self, like what is a god, who's really a god, do you actually really need a body to, like, exist? Like, you don't need any of that to be loved by people. You can be loved as a god. Things like that. It's very intriguing, and sometimes some of the tone of voice can be extremely haunting, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, as I said before, the show is not, like, it's easy to accuse the show of being pretentious, but it really isn't. But
No.
having said that, this character definitely is, and
He's an asshole. We'll call him what he is.
We're calling it like we see it.
Like he's
Yeah,
the kind of
he's the kind of.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Sparky really, he really nails that.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that if he was around in today's day and age, he would definitely be buying cryptocurrency and pushing NFTs on everybody.
We're talking about the character, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm about to say, I'm like, hang on, not Sparky Thornton, no.
I've never
But
met
it's the
Sparky,
character.
but I
If
assume.
Masumi Eri exists right now in the modern world, he is a fucking Elon Musk reply guy.
Oh,
like,
100%. Oh, 100%. And that fucking, and that other guy, the office guy who's part of the Knights, that guy too, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could see it with that guy too, that fucking CEO.
If they made this today, that would probably just be an obvious Elon Musk knockoff. Like,
Oh,
they give him a slightly different name, and he's
100%.
designed to look like him. Like,
100%.
Absolutely.
And it's fitting for the show
100%.
that they had the wherewithal to pitch the ideas about how they thought the internet would change society and people's mentality and interconnectivity and everything, but also to make the voice that they disagreed with the mouthpiece of a character that you're not supposed to agree with. Like, you look at this character, you look at Sparky's Masami, and you realize, okay, we are not supposed to side with a character who says, it's easy to die, you can just upload your brain to the internet.
Right.
And Sparky gives it a whole lot of menace and evilness that is, good on the writers for not just throwing the ideas out there, but also taking a side on what is a right and wrong way to use this technology in the future.
100%. And, like, being able to convey that in such a way. Like, again, I found it to be really haunting at points, especially during the conversations he has at Lane. It's very interesting and intriguing, that whole conversation, the idea of self-existence, what is God, who is God, like, all that fun stuff. I think that last third of the show and all of those philosophical pieces is kind of what drew me back into the show at the fucking last minute.
Yeah,
Yes,
in that way.
yeah.
Of course, we get a lovely Akira reference with his character.
Yeah, and I gotta say that performance-wise, this was probably my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
100%.
This is tied with another one I'll talk about later, but I think, especially overall, like, this is probably the character.
This just felt like the correct casting choice.
Oh yeah.
No. Yeah, I think it helps that, like, he's probably the character who has the most to... Like, him and the Men in Black feel like the characters who have the most to, like, relatively work with as far as acting goes. and he has a lot more screen time than they do as far as actually saying things on screen. So
Now
he really nails it.
The one who does not really get a whole lot of acting, though, is Lane's Navi, which is short for navigator. They just take the word navigator and shorten it to Navi.
Yes.
But still, give credit to Melissa for, it's very easy to have a monotone computer voice that is sounding like this all the time. And she doesn't do that. She does a very, if she modulates, she goes up and down. But she gives, this otherworldly warble that conveys the... I'm sure they're modulating her voice a little bit, because it sounds like there's a little bit of post-work on it to give it that digital sound to it.
Oh, 100%. There's got to be some filters put on that to make it work, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When I heard Navi, I was totally thinking back to Ocarina of Time, even though I never played that game.
I've never played a Zelda game, so I feel that.
Who's Zelda?
No.
Exactly. Literally all I know about that game is that everyone finds the Navi characters is extremely annoying.
Hey,
she's very chatty in a way that you if you're slightly too old, she's very annoying.
Hey, listen!
Well, luckily this one was not like that. Stop it!
No, thank God.
Hey, listen!
I'm gonna be doing that.
The line that I think came across as the best flavor of Melissa's performance is the character, the computer says hello to Lane when she boots it up, but then in episode 3 she starts walking away and says good night, and the computer says back good night, Lane. In a very oh, I didn't know the computer was that sentient yet. Oh, this is gonna get creepy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Also, as a side note, because I did not mention this is another actor under pseudonym. This is Mary Elizabeth McGuinn, and it's very funny to me that they hired the Major to play this talking computer.
Listen, I didn't fucking realize until I saw the discussion that we're doing. Because here's the thing: so ANN has 5 different people playing different voices of the Wired, right? And then another for Lane's Navi, and then you have a couple people listed as Lane's friend 1 and Lane's friend 2,
Who I will note have names. Whoever did the train and just couldn't be fucking bothered to figure them out.
Right. Yeah. But in the case of Mary Elizabeth McGuinn, I didn't even know it was her, and I didn't dig too deep on other roles, because I didn't put 2 and 2 together of oh, this doesn't sound familiar to me at all. Excuse me, the fuck?
Oh. I did recognize that too, because I have seen it before and other stuff, but
I've probably seen it too. I just can't think of it.
I didn't realize who it was either.
Okay, so I'm on Stephanie's side in that I didn't recognize her either, but that's because she has a wide range of voices she does, so that even though I recognize her when she does her major voice, she played this buff woman teacher character in the recent Carmen Sandiego cartoon, and I did not recognize her at all in that. So when I realized that it was her in this, I was like, okay, that is another voice that I did not know that Mary Elizabeth could do. Props to her.
No, yeah, I primarily know Mary Elizabeth McGuinn as the strong female characters. So the Major, Julia in Bebop, that's what I primarily know her for, right? Not some maybe sentient PC from the fucking 90s. So
you think
can understand my confusion.
Oh no! There is a scene where she is using.
What, you think it's Apple?
Yeah, because there's a scene where one of the characters, Alice, is using one of those see-through computer boxes. You remember those old computers where you could see through it and see in the interior computer?
Listen. Alice has an Apple. Lane has a PC. She customized that shit to hell and back. You can't customize it very well. An Apple very well, dude.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that is true. But anyway, continuing on, I did think Ian did a pretty good job. Playing a really good kind of preteen Edward kind of deal.
Oh
He's
yeah,
a snot-nosed kid, fucking punk.
Little punk ass kid.
Punk ass kid. Fucking Dante, punk ass kid. Fucking Dante from the Somnifaus, punk ass kid.
Yep.
I was totally expecting him to pull out a line from Outlaw Star, which is, huh, is that why you have your hand on her ass?
What?
Oh, you gotta watch the show.
But yeah, this is just very much the kind of kid who, like, thinks they know everything, even though, like...
He doesn't.
He tries to plant a kiss on her.
He did plant a kiss on her. What are you talking about?
You're right. Because apparently he's a guy, and you should expect that kind of thing. Which,
and also because he was apparently on a date with Lane, even though all she did was use that as a guise to get him to come over and look at shit on the computer. So,
yeah, I'm assuming this character is like 8, maybe 10 years old.
Oh, I think he's a little older than that.
I would say oldest.
Like
the youngest, the oldest maybe preteen, maybe. But a hard maybe.
I assumed he was like late middle school just because he is hanging out at a dance club like with
Right.
similar age. I'm assuming he's not that young.
I mean, it is noted that Lane is in middle school, so like.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking like late middle school in American terms, not like...
not in Japanese.
I don't remember how it branches up to word like Japanese school
I think
structure.
Japan is like, 3 years in high school, 2 for middle school?
No, I think it's like 3 or 4 for middle school and then like 2 for high school, I think.
Well, there is a younger age
it's
clearance for getting into clubs and stuff.
I do remember looking this up, and I think Lane's supposed to be like a first year in high school or something like that.
Okay.
Like she is in high school, I think, but like just like very beginning.
Yeah, that was hard to place, especially because what kind of high school freshman wears teddy bear pajamas?
Perhaps one who has a lot of personality concerns she's trying to work out.
I don't know, Noah. I don't know what you're talking about. Puts away cat onesie in my drawer. Puts away Gengar onesie in my drawer.
Well, you've gone past the high school stage. Like you've gone out of that, and you're allowed to wear onesies now. You know, you're old. You're grandma age. You're allowed to wear whatever you want now.
I'm grandma age. How fucking dare you?
In terms of internet ages, like all of us here are in our early 30s, and we're all ready for the nursing home.
Yeah, that's
I still feel insulted. Fuck you, dude.
Just accept it. Don't even try to download TikTok. Just accept the world has moved past you. You are not with it anymore. It'll happen to you.
No, it's too late. I've had TikTok for at least a year. I make TikTok videos of my cat. It's fun. My cat is also currently sleeping in a chair nearby me. He's doing his best.
Meanwhile, my social media presence doesn't extend me on the... God, I can't even call it the bird anymore.
No! Let's be real.
It's still the bird.
They took the logo off the
let's be real.
On that note, pour one out for this video. It really can't be the big in the same room as those guys.
Oh my god, that's right. They're the same fucking building.
Just remember, Viz has been based in San Francisco its entire life. These are not the first tech shitheads they probably had to be in an office next to.
Oh, probably.
They're tougher than that.
Probably.
Did anyone else have anything else to say about Ian or any of the performances?
He was pretty good. Ian Hawke was pretty good. Fun little punk ass kid. Now I just have that in my head, and now I want to play The Somnium Files again. Punk ass kid.
Punk ass kid.
Well, here, let's put this recording on pause. We'll be back in a bit after we play The Somnium Files for a couple hours.
You realize if we were to do a few hours, it's more than a few hours, Noah.
Well, we can like double time it, right?
That's not how this works.
It's a visual novel, and you kind of can't.
About to say, you're talking... Noah, you're in a call with 3 people who have played The Somnium Files. You can't finish it in a couple of hours.
I'm joking.
There's no... Unfortunately, it does not have a 1.5 speed option.
Yes.
Anything else?
No, I like the performances.
Oh, let's move on to the next batch of very memorable characters.
Oh,
Indeed.
God.
Before we get there, I will give a brief shout out to James Lyon and Robert Wicks, aka Jameson Price and Bob Buckholtz, as the 2 Men in Black guys.
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed
I enjoyed when they popped up. I would not mind if they got like a spin-off where they just do weird shady shit and then like talk to each other in the car afterwards.
No, I also would like that spin-off, but also their day job is working on power lines like we saw at the end of the show. That's their day job, and then at night they're all sketchy as shit. Can I also briefly shout out fucking Leah Sargent too as Chisa Yomoda? The girl who commits suicide in the beginning? Yep.
I love seeing where directors who act put themselves in anime dubs, and it is very interesting that Leah chooses to play the dead girl who kicks everything off.
Pretty much. But Chisa does come back, like, briefly towards the end when Lane is contemplating shit, too, which is very interesting.
Because it's that kind of show.
She has a very prominent line about, it's not actually easy to die. I don't know why you think that.
Yes.
Which, I don't know if the show was specifically targeting, like, trying to be an anti-suicide PSA, but I'm glad that it got that point across.
Or an anti-technology PSA?
I don't think it's anti-tech.
There's definitely a through line in here about like the struggle of existence is worth it.
Yeah.
I think you can definitely read that in. So I think there's something in there about that.
Yeah, I think it's very subtle, especially with Chisa, I think. You don't see it because she's kind of just one and done in the beginning, and then it doesn't really come up again until until the 11th hour, essentially. But it's still a very poignant moment, I think.
It does help kind of set the stage of like the weirdness of the Wired, because the way that she speaks, when we first see her message, it's like, there is a rumor at that school that this email is a prank. It is not a prank. And it's like, it's a little monotone, but it's like intentionally creepy to ease you into, there's going to be some weird stuff. This is not your happy Kodacha slice of life anime. This is shit's going down kind of anime.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, I need to get Kodacha. Thank you, Discotheque, for pointing that back out again.
How's that? Do we want to move on to our next set of characters?
Yes.
All right, this will probably be pretty short. We have the Uekara family, Yasuo, who's the dad, Mio, who is the mom, and Mika, who is Lane's sister.
But are they
they're
really?
a curious bunch.
They're very
that's a question.
Yeah, because they kind of...
they're not, I guess?
The show is very ambiguous about whether them suddenly disappearing is meant to be a sign that they are never a real family, or is part of Lane's kind of slow breakdown that she's having affecting the real world, making her loved ones go away.
A lot of things with the family was so confusing.
Yeah, I know, because the family was framed as distant from the very beginning, so, I know, at least watching it for this, I got the implication that they weren't her real family, and she was brought in for I guess I got the impression she was supposed to be connected to whatever Masami Eri was doing.
So visually speaking, I can see where Jet's coming from, because there is a moment in the show where Lane is kind of standing in the doorway of the home, and her family's near the stairs further out, and someone pushes Lane into the house. I can kind of see from a visual standpoint where Jet might be seeing that. It's very confusing. This family is so confusing.
The idea is more that Lane that we see near the beginning of the show is a hologram projection of a program that's already in the Wired, and these characters who we're about to talk about were planted there to give the illusion of her real world counterpart having a normal existence. And we see in the 10th episode about when the dad is leaving, and he lays it out pretty straightforward to us and says, it's time for us to go. You must have figured it out by now. We were never really your family. But that's okay, because you're never really alone. All you gotta do is plug into the Wired, and everyone will love you. So that's the clearest explanation we get.
Yeah.
But by that point, though, too, the line between what is real and what is actually part of the Wired is very much blurred. So you could also take that same scene and be like, am I actually in the Wired, though, and not in real life? The line is so blurred by that point, you can't exactly tell by that point what is reality and what is fiction. if that makes sense. So the big thing I'm confused about, and we can get into this once we introduce the actors, I'm so fucking confused about the sister.
Yeah, and so all of that confusion...
that's obvious. She loses her soul and turns into a modem.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Anyway, can we just, before we go too crazy, can
Sure.
we talk about the voices, please?
Too late.
Absolutely.
Too late. We're already there.
The Urikawas, they're distant, they're weird, they're kind of, I'm not gonna say confusing on purpose, but I think they are an example of how the show, in some places, I think, is not particularly interested in clean yes-no answers and wants to make you really have to come to your own conclusions about what you think happens.
It's very ambiguous.
Yes. Playing the dad, Yasuo, we have Gil Starberry, who's known for such roles as the King of Metarikana in Bastard, the OVA, not the one on Netflix, Steiner Hardy in Mobile Suit Gundam 0080, War in the Pocket, and Apple Delphi Sinzend Hesap Luften in Cowboy Bebop. If you're wondering who that is, well, you might have guessed from the name, that's Edward's dad, who's eternally trying to map out that planet that meteors are constantly falling on.
That is a mouthful of a name.
I'm pretty sure that planet was Earth.
I mean, look at what he named his kid, right?
Well, no, I thought Ed gave themselves that name.
I don't, you know what, it's been long since I haven't seen Bebop, I don't actually remember which direction it goes in, but clearly, if that is true, the apple does not fall from the tree. Mm-hmm. Apple Deli, is that intentional? I don't know. He's also Mr. Gon in the MTV Shorts version of the Max, which I'm just including because I like the Max and I like bringing it up.
Oh, absolutely. You can't not mention the Max.
Exactly. Miho, the mom, is played by Celeste Birch. Celeste only has one anime role, but that's okay because it's Ryoko from Tenchi Muyo.
That explains
who,
so
as far as
much.
Which, as far as I can tell, is the main reason to watch Tenchi Muyo these days anyways, so
yes,
good for her.
Yes, it is. She, screw Tenchi, he's not important. Screw all the other girls, it is all about one character, and it is that one, absolutely. Now, even the cat ship character thing, no, forget about that. No, it's all about the one character.
I mean, what is Owl House if not three seasons? I
don't know. I haven't watched Tenchi in like forever, and I only have vague memories of when I watched it as a kid. But I do distinctly remember Ryoko being best girl, so that sounds accurate.
Ryoko is best girl.
I have never watched Tenchi Muyo, nor do I have any interest in watching Tenchi Muyo. I'll just take your word for it.
If you have aversion to visible anime tits, then yes, you should probably avoid that show. At least the original OVA.
All I know is this explains so much as to why I'm not a fan of the mom's performance. I'm gonna say that right fucking now.
I'll say this is nothing like Tenchi. There's nothing like Ryoko at all.
I imagine so, but the fact that there's only like basically 2 credits to this.
Oh no! She's a very well-versed voice actor. This is just her only anime role.
What else has she done outside of anime?
But I'll say that
a shit ton of stuff I didn't write down.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Hold on, I'm gonna look up. I'm looking up their website. It's linked on ANN. That
like they are a real voice actor. They just haven't done a lot of anime work. That was the joke.
God.
Which is fine.
Okay.
Which is fine.
Oh, audiobooks. What else have you done? Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Yes, and Mika is played by Patricia J. Lee, not a pseudonym, that's their real name. She plays Mifa in Cowboy Bebop. She is Matricia Martin in Lucky Star. She is Mizuku Okujima in The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. And also, if you had those DVDs, you might recognize her as the live-action Haruhi from those ASOS Brigade shorts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's her running around in that outfit.
Okay.
Huh. Okay.
Interesting.
Is that the one where they're like interviewing the voice actors?
No, these were like these odd things that I don't know where they came from, but they're like live action, and it's like Haruhi running around doing stuff.
I don't.
And they have her playing Haruhi.
Was this on like? Do you know if this is on the re-release, the Funimation re-release?
I assume they are, but I've never actually checked a look.
I'm gonna have to check.
They were definitely on the old Bandai DVDs. That's where I saw them, but I couldn't tell you at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
But, getting into these performances, these were probably the 3 I found the most shaky.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that we couldn't even figure out if they're real or not probably went to the show themselves, because it's like, okay, guys, you're playing a dad and a mom, but you're not really. You're like, you have a strained relationship, but you might not actually be married. Go!
Oh my god. Like, I'm...
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of hard. Yeah, it is. Yeah, you did bring up a good point, because, like, there's not a whole lot of material with, like, any of them, so I'm not sure what the actors could really latch onto here. But,
The mom has nothing.
Nope.
The mom has nothing. She just exists.
You know when I was talking about some of the characters are kind of like, just avatars and archetypes?
Bored housewife, whose husband
bored
is...
housewife, distant dad, bitchy sister.
Yeah.
There you go.
Now, okay, so the question is, do they at least perform those archetypes well?
I will go to back that I think Gil does a good job of being a really emotionally distant dad.
Yes, I will give them credit on that.
Who does clearly like his daughter, he just doesn't know how to actually express the affection in any, like, a way outside of, like, oh, you're into computers, I'm into computers, I'll get you a computer.
It's very interesting.
The fact that he has that one, he finds that one thing that they can connect on, and he has way more lines than the other two in this group about, like, he has lines about the interconnectivity of the universe with the wired, but also he actually comes back to explain that, Lane, the wired is not the real world, and then Lane shuts him down and is like, but you're wrong, it is the real world.
I found it interesting that this was the guy who delivered that line.
Yeah, it ends up being like the dad doing like a last ditch effort to keep Lane from going too far. And it's very interesting. It's a very interesting setup because it's a very interesting delivery, because the setup for it at the start of the show is that dad just really likes computers, and he's also almost, what it looks like anyway, obsessed with the wired. At least that's what you visually see. When in actuality, he's able to discern the two and keep the wired at a distance, and it's not an obsession. Unlike what happens with Lane, and she goes down that rabbit hole. It's very interesting that the dad is the one who's like, it's not real, right?
And that's and as a dad myself, that definitely resonates of the, I want my kids to have connections with people on this great technology that we have. Oliver does have people who he talks to on Minecraft, and they're building stuff together. But I also make a point to remind him, make sure that you you actually know who you're talking to. You don't share confidential information, and also that you don't spend all of your time on there. That's why there's a time limit on Switch, people.
I was about to say, I remember going through the exact same thing when I was in like middle school, high school, when like the internet was really coming up, honestly, when more things were accessible at that point. And I would be getting those same exact messages, Noah, that like you are telling Ollie, and I would get that from my family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, like that kind of stuff is still prevalent to this day. And it's very interesting how poignant the show can be with that kind of stuff.
It's interesting that the dad, Gil's performance, he doesn't really show up in the kids episode. There's an episode where they talk to a scientist, like a mad scientist who like did experiments on kids and kind of locked their brains in the wired. And that felt to me like a parallel to how the youth of that day of 1998 should be cautious about being too connected to the internet or accidentally giving away information that they shouldn't online.
Yeah.
But the dad doesn't really have a role in that. It's like once he is established and gotten Lane her computer that she then starts building into this giant monster that it is, he doesn't really come back again until near the end, when he kind of delivers that "we're not real, goodbye, you're gonna be just fine" delivery.
He does show up one more time though after that.
Right.
Yeah, it is interesting you brought up that whole thing with the kids experiment, because, like, I feel like that was maybe supposed to be the explanation for Blade being Blade, but it's also vague, so I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, the question is this a sermon about kids being too addicted to the internet, or is it part of the plot? Can we get some footnotes, please? Can we get some liner notes? And no, we cannot.
Can I also just say that whole kids episode, the one thing I was thinking of, because it's not only these like weird experiments and stuff like that, they're like, the kids are like raising their arms and looking at the sky, and all I can think of, because remember, at one point the clouds part open, and then Lain is there, and the one thing I can think of is fucking praise the sun!
Is that the Dark Souls guy
Yes!
I see everywhere?
Yes.
Yeah,
Praise
no,
the
when I saw that, it's like, oh, it's the Dark Souls guy when he was a kid. Oh, look at him. He turned his hobby to a job. Good for that guy.
Praise the sun!
Not the worst thing to see when you look up at the sky, honestly.
Yeah. For Lain, it was very confusing for seeing herself in the sky for some fucking reason, though.
Yeah, I didn't quite get that either. It's like, are we in the internet? I'm trying to figure
Praise
the puzzle out.
Lain!
So yeah, Gil definitely gets the most to perform, and it sounds very similar to the Japanese again. Like they got an actor who sounded pretty similar to the original Yusao in the Japanese. Not really a flat delivery. Definitely gets some good emotional beats in there, but it's inconsistent. That's the thing I'm gonna say about the three of these, is that they have parts that are well acted, but then there's other flat line deliveries. Especially there's a part where the mom is asking the dad, it's the sister who's kind of saying, Lane's acting kind of weird, and the dad has like this weird delivery of like, no, pause, that's normal for her age, not ... Don't worry about it too much. It's just I know they're trying to match the lip flaps. It's just like, oh, poor guy. Poor guy.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. Like, no, I think you're right. For like a good amount with the family, there are some highlights. I'm only gonna say between the dad and the sister, there are some good points. I did not care for the voice the mom had at all. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Like, it was so stilted and so bored. I was dying on the inside. But thankfully the mom didn't have a lot to do anyway, aside from being
yeah. To me, I'm kind of wondering if that was maybe like the reason. Like, there wasn't really a whole lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, of the like, we're talking about like 8 characters here in total. The mom has by far the least to do.
Yeah.
Like, I included her here because her name's bolted on ANN. Like, she doesn't have a lot to work with.
Yeah. But
so the question then is that, like, is she supposed to be flat because she's not Lane's actual mother, or is she supposed to be a parallel to that time period where people could, like, men could get super addicted to technology and neglect their wives?
I feel like, I think the broader thing is the implication is this family's kind of dysfunctional in general. I think it's partially like, this is not a very happy marriage.
No,
like, they're not, like, whatever spark was there when they were younger is not here anymore.
Yeah, you just get the sense that the family does not talk to each other, like, literally at all. So
yeah, like even in like in the last episode where we're in like the laneless world, like, they still act like that. Like, they're just not very connected.
Because I remember, like, even early on in the show, there's like a bit where, like, they mention, like, oh, time where, I don't know, I think, like, the sister comes over and is like, oh, wow, like, you're home early. Meanwhile, like, Lane's out, like, God knows how late. And it's like, yeah, like, can you be concerned that your daughter is out late doing something?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I don't care.
No, yeah, it's... Oh, God, it's... I'm sorry, I don't like the mom's performance, like, at all. It was the most dull I had ever heard in my entire goddamn life. The sister, though. So, Patricia Jolie. The sister, again, similar to a lot of the performances in the show, and like we were just talking about with the dad, too, the consistency is not there. Like, there are some moments, performance-wise, where I can, like, feel what she's conveying, but it's not done at a consistent level. Mm-hmm. So, it makes the performance a bit more stilted. And I think given what the circumstances here with the show, I think probably the standout moments in episode, specifically for Mika as a character, is the episode where I don't even still fucking know what happened to her.
The one where she, like, loses her soul and disappears into nothing, and afterwards she's just kind of a catatonic nothing.
Where apparently she didn't fulfill some fucking prophecy, and now she's just speaking in Morse code or some horse shit. Like,
no, she's a modem.
Yeah,
She's a modem.
I don't
a human modem.
I don't even know what happened to her. Like, I don't get it. Like, for the most part, she was running away, like, and she was being told to fulfill some goddamn prophecy. Like, what the fuck is even happening? Where did this come from, and why her?
So, there's two ways to interpret her character. Is that in episode 2, which is titled Girls, she acts as an example of growing up. Because that whole episode is, like, it's got lines about puberty and maturity and Lain sort of, like, developing beyond childhood into the adulthood that her sister is clearly in. But then the second half of her development is, like, she's become so disconnected that she starts to lose her humanity and becomes the modem that we see. And so that, you see that, like, glazed over expression that she's kind of got as she's kind of, like drifting out of consciousness, which I took to mean that she was supposed to represent people who get, like, too addicted to the internet and be, like, kind of lose their humanity in the process.
But the problem with the sister is you don't really see her that connected to the internet, though.
Losing yourself to the internet seems more like Lane's deal.
About to say, like, if anyone was gonna have that, like, glazed over expression, it would be Lain, and she does have that from time to time. Mika, on the other hand, it's not really prompted, so I don't even know. I don't know, like, where that connection could be, to be honest with you.
Well, it could be, actually, now that you mentioned that, the idea is that those who do not connect to the internet lose the interconnectivity of the rest of the world because everyone else is getting connected to that, like, singularity that we were talking about, and she's not. You know, she's more about, like, I think she's fucking. I think she was sleeping with that guy in that one episode.
She has a life, I guess?
Yeah, she has a social life. But she didn't jump on board, she didn't get Internet Explorer, and so everyone's just kind of leaving her in the dust.
So, what does that say about the mom, then, if you use that logic?
Oh, the mom's comatose. Absolutely gone.
Yeah, whatever.
But she didn't turn into a modem, though!
I think this is one of the things where it's just kind of like, why did this happen? I don't know, the show is weird.
See, this is the beauty of this show. Here we are having deep, serious discussion about what everything is supposed to be. Isn't this great?
I mean,
we're having deep discussions about what makes a modem work.
I mean, let's be honest. This was obviously written by guys. Like, the gender politics of this are a little skewed because, obviously, like, the women do not get, like, a good out. You know, the men get either, like, grand, brain-breaking, outs in the show or turning into giant monsters. Or the women are just kind of like, beep, 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 beep.
That's also not true. That is also not true. Remember that whole thing with the knights? There is a female knight involved who ends up dead after that whole. So you can't exactly even say that.
It's inconsistent.
It's very inconsistent.
But to bring it back to the discussion about the actress herself, Patricia, I don't know what the direction they gave her in the booth was. She when the scenes are more conventional in, like, the social older sister role, I'm glad that they didn't give her, like, a Valley Girl accent or, like, something that would convey, like, the socialite teenager voice that maybe you would expect if the show was more over the top, and just had like a normal teenage girl voice, I guess.
I feel like it kind of leaned more towards a bit more of a mature tone of voice for the sister, which I think works, and especially for a dynamic between Mika and Lain, where Lain is a lot more, like, higher pitched and a little bit more breathy at times, compared to Mika, who is much more grounded, a little bit more of mature sounding, kind of like, I'm about to say no nonsense. It's not quite the descriptor I'm looking for, but it kind of fits in there. So for the dynamic between the two sisters, I think it works very well. because with what Mika's character is in this show, I don't see Valley Girl at all. That is not a description for that character at all.
No.
So I'm also very glad that they didn't default to that horse shit. So again, it's probably one of those things where they were matching the Japanese, and of course the Japanese Mika did not sound like a Valley Girl. So
yeah, I think to Noah's point, a contrast between the two of them is is Steph's point? Lain is very much presented as someone who is maybe not like childish, but still kind of immature. Like, you know, she wears her bear onesie, she still has all of her stuffed animals, and her sister is someone who's clearly like they are, if not embracing adulthood, they're much further along towards that, and are much more like, you know, I have a social life. I don't actually like hanging out with my parents very much, and I try to avoid doing it anymore.
I might have a good description,
et cetera.
actually. Mm-hmm. Lain is more of a representation of innocence compared to her sister.
Oh yeah.
And you can definitely see that on display with Lane's naivete as well as some of her actions. And you can even say that when we fucking get to it, when we talk about the two Lanes.
Oh yeah.
In this.
There's three.
But all right, you're right. But real life Lane kind of has that glimmer of like innocence and childlike wonder in a little bit. And it's a very interesting counter to Mika's more mature, a bit more well-rounded, more adult between the two sisters. So
There is one criticism I would have with Mika's performance, and it's
Sure.
I think it's less to do with the voice acting and more to do with just the direction of the show, like on an animation level. I often confused Mika with Alice when
I did that a couple times.
Attention.
Yeah.
That's actually one of those things where a part of me wonders if that is slightly intentional, maybe. Like her relationship with her sister being in such cruddy straits, Lane like gravitates towards someone who reminds her of her.
Maybe. Or maybe someone she wants to have that kind of relationship with.
Yeah.
Okay,
it
I
doesn't
can
help
kind of see that.
But it doesn't help that the character designs for Mika and Alice, like if you put them two side by side,
yeah.
It's not that distinct from each other. None of them have the little X in their hair like Lane does. So it's like I don't know which one I'm looking at the moment.
I'll do you one better. I mixed up. I thought, the episode that was focused on Mika where she didn't fulfill the fucking prophecy. I actually got her mixed up with, what the fuck is her name? The other friend, is it Ritsu maybe? Whatever her name is.
With the long hair?
Yes.
Not the buns hair, but the long hair.
No, not Julie. Or not Julie. But she's the actual name of the character's not even fucking listed here. But yeah, the other one.
Reika's the one with the straight hair, and Julie's the one with the puffy hair.
Yeah, Reika, that's her name. Yeah, I got Mika mixed up with Reika during that episode. I was like, huh? This is not Reika? It's Mika?
Yeah. And again, I don't think that's a criticism of the actresses, because if I was really paying attention, you could tell subtle differences between Alice and Mika's performance and the other girl A and girl B who you mentioned. But just the way the show is animated, and this is just kind of a thing that Ryotaro Nakamura likes to do, it's all very squashy and stretchy, and it's kind of hard to tell which character is which if you're not paying very close attention.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about that.
Excellent. Any other thoughts on these characters from anyone?
I got nothing.
All right. Do we want to talk about our leads?
Oh,
yes.
God.
Oh, boy.
So much here.
Wait, let me pour another glass. Hold on. Let me...
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
We have our main character, and we have our main character's best friend. Question mark. We have Lain Iwakura. Lane's she's in school. She's very isolated. She's very shy. She's very bad at opening up to people. But one day she decides to turn on her laptop because some people are talking about getting a weird chain email. And she finds the world is wired, and she finds a vehicle with which to maybe express herself a little more easily. And this ends up having consequences.
Understatement.
And we also have Alice. Alice is a schoolmate of hers. They basically end up becoming friends in part because Alice and a couple of her buddies all thought that they saw Lane at a hip dance club they like going to. And they're like, Lane, was that you? You're not the kind of person who goes out there. And they start including her events, and they become friends. And this unexpectedly also has consequences.
Oh boy, does it.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Who's playing these characters? Well, Alice is being played by Emily Brown, best known for roles such as Kotoko in The Legend of Black Heaven, Aina Sahalin in Mobile Suit Gundam, the 8th MS Team, and Melfina in Outlaw Star.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, right. And Lane is played by Ruby Marlowe, who is best known for playing Belle Dandy in Ah My Goddess the movie. She's Miyaka Yuki in Fushigi Yugi, that is the main character. And she's Mima Kirigo in Perfect Blue.
That wouldn't happen to be an alias by any chance, would it?
That is an alias for Bridget Hoffman, yes.
Oh, what a shock.
Is it
Totally don't have the cast list right in front of me.
Absolutely not.
Where's Mima? I just want to look. Oh, fuck! She's the lead of Perfect Blue. Mima!
Yep.
Oh, boy!
So apparently this is the woman you called up when you had something screwy and mind-bending and you wanted to dub it in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Oh, boy, is it!
Yep.
When did the English release happen for Perfect Blue? Now I'm morbidly curious. Now we've pulled this.
I feel like it was within a few years of the movie coming out, so definitely late 90s, I think, maybe 2000.
To be exact, the VHS version of the dub for Perfect Blue came out November 23rd, 1999. So for Thanksgiving,
Yep.
right in time for the holidays, boys and girls.
What a fun time.
I remember being that kid in 1999 who was like, Grandma, I really like cartoons. And Grandma finds this on the shelf and it's like, what? This is cartoons. This is what you asked for, right? But
Gather family around.
I wanted
Gather
like
the family.
Lion King 2 or something like that.
Oh, no, can you imagine Thanksgiving dinner? All the families gathered around. Everybody's full, about to go into a turkey coma. Hey, why don't we watch a movie? And then you slip in Perfect Blue. And then everybody just vomits up their dinner.
We are never inviting you again.
You want to know what it's like to be treated like comic book guy from The Simpsons? Well, now you'll know for the rest of your life. Anyways,
Oh, man.
Where do we want to start?
Let's start with Alice, just because I feel like she's... as opposed to Lane, Alice does not get to be multiple different characters in the show, but she does have the most range because she goes from normal, happy high school character to the only one whose memories are preserved after Lane kind of wipes
resets everything.
Yeah. So, and obviously, first of all, in the Japanese, they don't call her Alice, they call her Arisu, but that's clearly the Japanilation of the word Alice.
Again, they do
Alice
this.
in Wonderland?
They do the same thing with Julie. Her name in Japanese is Judy.
Yeah.
I mean, Alice, I'm at least willing to buy. That might just be a difference in Japanese pronunciation because they don't have L's or they don't have the L's in Japanese.
It's an Alucard, Arucard kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awoo-card. Awoo. Ooh.
But so yeah, performance-wise, it's pretty good. Has to do a lot. Has to be both upset at Lane for both leaking her secrets about jacking it to her teacher, while also saving Lane near the end by reminding her, "Hey, we're human. We're alive. Feel this. Here, touch my boobs. See, you feel that?
Touch my boobs." Because that's exactly where your heart is, right in between your boobs.
Absolutely.
By the way, boys and girls.
Anatomy. Like I said, made by men. What can I say?
To each. I mean, it's hard to know for sure, given how obscure given the amount of abstraction we're going on. But when Lane said, "Alice, I love you," I got a certain vibe there.
Yeah.
Little queer vibe.
And
going
they're best friends. Best friends.
Yeah, it's totally. Yeah, I'm gonna say something mean. It's totally up to interpretation.
Okay.
I definitely have very fuzzy memories of this being a show that, like, Yuri fans of yore were fond of. Not for strictly being Yuri, but going enough in that direction that they had something to enjoy.
They had very little to grab onto at that time, so they took whatever scraps they could get, right?
I guess I don't know what kind of stuff was available in the U.S. in the late '90s, but sure, let's go with that.
Not a lot, I don't think.
If Utena was not enough for you, I guess.
Oh yeah, there's Utena. That's right.
Yeah, that's not a gay show at all.
No, not the slightest.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you say that, like, Ikuhara will just come to your house and attack you.
Oh, absolutely.
He'll come for your ass.
Well, that's coming later. That's Jet. You and I, we got later discussions about that. But continued.
Well, later discussions. Even though you forget that Lane's gonna come after that.
Okay, so we've already talked about it. We haven't, as of recording this episode, but
breaking the fourth wall, ladies and gents.
Ikuhara likes gay girls. Okay, it's not a secret.
He likes the gay.
But
anyways.
yeah, Emily's. I don't know what direction she was given in this, but the range is mostly good. It's a little inconsistent. There are flatline reads. Specifically when they're going out and about in like the club setting and just kind of like being normal kids, is like they didn't quite know how to interpret that. It reminded me a bit of. Have you guys ever seen this Baz Luhrmann movie called Romeo plus Juliet?
Oh my god, the Baz Luhrmann version of that movie. Yep.
Yeah, the guy says, "Bring me my long sword," and it's a shotgun that has a long sword on it.
That one.
Okay, so you mean the best adaptation of Romeo and Juliet to exist?
I don't know.
Debatable.
Nomeo plus Juliet has Elton John songs, so
that is incorrect. That is the wrong interpretation. Fuck you.
It is.
You had a point you were working towards. What was it?
The point. Okay, so the point I had was that delivery-wise, in that movie, the teenage actors can't recite Shakespeare dialogue for shit because they don't know what in the hell they're saying. I get some of that delivery from the Emily Brown lines, not because she's not a good voice actress, but because they don't quite know what tone to go for. The direction is like, we don't know if this is like in the real world, this is in the Wired, and there's a couple of lines like that which hold this dub back from being an okay dub. It definitely suffers from that. We don't know the tone to go for because we don't quite know what's going on in the story, and that's the biggest criticism I can have of Emily's performance as Alice in this dub.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I would say she has some moments in her performance where, because the whole point with Alice's character is to essentially be, I think, Lane's one last connection to the real world and humanity, right? Because Alice is very nice to her. Like, she tries to include her in things. She tries to be a friend. And so when Lane, or supposedly not Lane, leaks that she is getting a clam jam going on for her teacher, and when that information is put out to the public and Lane gets blamed for it, Lane feels bad that the only person that she really cares about and who cares about her is hurt because of her. So she tries to fix it. Hence, like, what we said earlier about, like, everybody losing their memories about the incident except for Alice. Except for her. Because I think that she is the one last piece of humanity or connection to the real world that Lane does have. Mm-hmm. So much so that by the end of it, when Lane decides, I'm just going to reset everything and take myself out of the equation. I'm just going to take myself out of this. I am not going to exist. That's fine. There's a disconnect, and
is it cliche to make Evangelion references at this point in the discussion?
No,
you're not wrong. I mean, again, it would have been a year before the show.
I I feel like the people making this in Anno had very similar things on their mind when they made their shows. I think that's a warranted comparison.
Yeah,
go on.
I was going to agree that, I know people have made the comparison and said, oh, Konaka, Jackie J. Konaka must have obviously cribbed his ideas from Evangelion, but I think it's more like, no, they were just very interested in very similar things. And yes, they put power lines in a lot of their shots, and it's like, come on, guys, that's not enough of a comparison.
That just tells me these people don't live in places that still have above ground power lines.
Exactly.
That's all that fucking tells me.
but anyway, back to kind of like my brain processing thoughts. Like after Lane disconnects basically everybody like and gets herself out of there, and nobody knows who Lane is, nobody exists. She loses all those connections, with Alice being that final one. Going back to the dad, actually, the dad ends up trying to reestablish a connection to Lane and try and bridge that gap. Because remember, she's depressed. She's in this world by herself, nothing to do, no one to talk to except this other Lane that's here. And she's just like miserable. And then suddenly her dad comes into the Wired. And her dad kind of helps bridge the gap and kind of starts a process of healing for Lane. So much so that what I would think is years down the line, Lane is able to exist back in the real world as much as humanly possible. And she does interact with Alice one more time. And it's a very poignant moment at the end of the show, too, for Alice, where Alice has been able to overcome all of the adversity that she had gone through, and she's actually dating the goddamn teacher that she has a thing for. Like, it's very interesting. But Lane still
be a heartwarming moment.
It's
in today's society I don't
today's
know
society.
How
Listen, in today's society, it would be questionable. But in the late 90s, it would be like a sweet, like, happy ending moment. Maybe quite literally and mentally. I don't know. But the point is, Lane tries to reach back out to Alice just to make a brief connection. Not necessarily reminding Alice of who she is, but just being able to still have, for Elaine's purpose, still have that connection to Alice. As the first real friend and the person that she cares about and helps hold and ground her humanity in the real world. It's a lot to digest, and Emily's performance, I will agree, is not consistent. There are moments where I think it shines really nicely. She's very sweet in the performance towards Lane, and it's so nice. But yeah, the consistency, like a lot of other performances in the show, it's not there, the consistency. But yeah, I just came to that realization about Alice after I just watched the final episode right before we started recording. So I'm like,
Yeah, there's definitely not a whole lot of consistency, which that's kind of her, considering this is supposed to be the character who's kind of supposed to bring a sense of humanity to this show, that it is a little bit of a letdown. But I did at least like her during, like the final moments with Lane where she's like trying to convince her, like, no, it's not like, yes, we're here, like, I'm a real person, this is reality.
yeah.
Since you reminded me of it, do you want to know what I thought? This is tangentially related, Emily, but you know what the most jarring moment in this dub is?
Oh, what?
What?
It's when Alice is having her little like fantasy daydream about the teacher like being sweet on her.
Oh yeah.
And the teacher is played by Stephen Bloom.
Yes.
No.
Sexy teacher Stephen Bloom was not something I was prepared for.
We told you, Noah. There's Mary Elizabeth McGlynn is not the only bebop actor in here.
No, I know. Okay. It's supposed to be depressing hearing that, because the moment you said that, I just remembered the other character he was probably known for playing around this time. Okay, well, not around this time, but like a few years later.
What, the GTO guy?
Yes.
Great teacher,
Very
Onizuka.
different teacher.
Very different teacher.
Only slightly less creepy in that show than this one.
Oh, only slightly.
Yeah, this is closer to like when he shows up in the Walla in Perfect Blue playing like some sleazy entertainment reporter. Steve Bloom has a wide range of voices, which makes it really hilarious when he just uses his natural speaking voice on some random nobody.
Yeah.
Any words of discotheque, you gotta have some gratuitous Steve Bloom in here somewhere.
God
Absolutely.
damn it, you're right. I've never heard that before, but you're fucking right.
That came from during the last discotheque stream, and I thought it was extremely funny.
Oh, yeah, no. Jet, did you talk about Emily yet?
I gave, like, some brief 2 cents.
Okay, Steph, you talked about... No, did you talk about... You talked about it already, right?
Yeah, we can.
All right.
I think we can gather all of our digital energy together and join the singularity that is talking about what a trip Ruby Marlowe's performance as Lain is.
Pseudonyms!
It's a very interesting performance because there's quite a lot going on with this character.
Oh boy, is there.
I'd like to think that this performance is a reference to one of Clint Eastwood's most famous performances. This performance is quite literally the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Oh god, that is an apt description, and I hate that you said that.
Because essentially playing what are sort of 2 different characters. You have the regular Lain, who's supposed to be, or the IRL Lain, who's supposed to be kind of like, as with before, sort of innocent, kind of like out of sorts, doesn't really know what's going on. It's kind of childish, awkward, doesn't really know how to like get along with her friends. And then you have Lain Wired, who's like very obtuse, creepy, like seems to know a lot more about what's going on than we do.
Has a lot more confidence, like confronts the scientist character who trapped the kids in the kids episode, and is the one who I'm assuming the one who we meet near the end, who's like wrapped up in wires and is like, telling off what's the name, Masami, about like, you were just a surrogate god, you asshole.
And also, there's that meeting that Lain has with, the guys in the suits that take her to me, whoever the fuck his name is.
The Men in Black's boss.
They're literally Men in Black.
Yeah, pretty much. And Lain has that moment where she shifts from IRL Lain into Wired Lain during that interaction.
And then
which
we
makes
have
me
Smug Lain.
which makes me seem like
Troll Lain.
she have like fucking multiple personality disorder or like dissociative disorder. Like what is happening with her?
No. I think this is a reflection of people behave differently online.
Yeah, it's both that.
Like the way I write on Twitter is not the way I act in real life.
I mean, it's worth noting, like, we're all friends here. We've known each other for the better part of a decade, but like, but at the same time, like we use a lot of even when we're talking in like regular conversations, we tend to use like online handles and not like actual names because like I don't know.
Yeah,
and
but that's
and not only do we act a little bit differently online than in the real world, but also our memories of each other is a little skewed because we only have those interactions on the internet and maybe like meeting briefly in real life. That memory in each other's brains is like the version of Amon that's in my brain may be a little different than the Amon that's in Stephanie's brain, in Jet's brain, and vice versa, back and forth there. That interpersonal, like who you are, is the reason for Lain's different personalities, because it's a reflection of not only where she's expressing herself, but also what parts of that expression are remembered by different people.
Here's the thing. So with Lain, it's very much implied throughout most of the show that there are 2 lanes, which correct, I can see 100% where it's like, oh, real life Lain and online personality. I see that 100%. But how that is more or less like alluded to or portrayed makes me also think like that's where the whole multiple personality comes in, or dissociative disorder, because then you have like, we're going back to the line between what's real and what is online gets so blurred, and there's like a huge gray area for Lain that she slips into either side of those very easily. And then sometimes, from what it seems to me, when she comes out of Wired Lane and into real life Lane in the same scene in the blink of an eye, she's confused as to what the fuck just happened.
So the question is,
you know what I mean?
Then, yes, does Bridget portray both sides of those equally well?
Both of them are distinct.
Yeah. I do think both are distinct. I do think between the two, like, Wired Lane sounds more like what I would kind of expect from this kind of show.
Yeah.
Like the confident go-getter attitude is what you would expect?
I mean, I wouldn't even say go-getter, just, like, confident, like, kind of, like, obtuse and a little bit abstract, like... no, that's not the right term, but I think it gives probably, like, ethereal. There we go.
Okay.
Ethereal is kind of, like, the tone I would expect for this character, and, like,
yeah.
I didn't get Wired Lane, like, it's there.
Yeah, both sides are distinct enough in terms of the tone of voice, the personality, but in terms of whether or not both sides succeed, that I would say that's more called into question because of the problem again with the entirety of this dub is a consistency issue, where I'm not gonna lie, between the two lanes, I actually really liked the performance for Wired Lane more than I did with Real Lane. To be completely honest with you.
I mean, that's Lane's problem. Her online persona is way more interesting than her real life person.
I mean, and that's the whole point, which makes a lot of sense. It's just why I kind of gravitate towards that. But
sure.
even then, there is a way to make a character like the real life Lane at least a bit more interesting in terms of performance. And again, this goes. There's a lot of issues with the dub. The fact that it's the one of its time. The fact that there's a lot of consistency issues. The fact that because this is going back to the timeline of like dubbing history, it's on the early outset. So probably the main priority at that point for a lot of English dubs was more or less matching the Japanese performances beat by beat. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of problems, I think, on the early onset that affect the final result, and Lane herself is probably the biggest thing that suffers from that, because she's the one who has to carry the whole show.
Yeah,
and because of that lack of consistency, it's hard to like really attach yourself.
Bridget Hoffman's performance as the in real life Lane matches the Japanese better than she does the Wired Lane, because her natural speaking voice and the very I want to say almost wimpy portrayal is matching with that archetype in Japanese actresses. That seiyuu voice is it's what she made a name for. But then when she has to be in real life Lane, she has to be Wired Lane. There's parts where the delivery, I don't believe the acting on there. Specifically, I'm calling out, like, there's a Cheshire Cat moment where she's, like, bitching out this talking mouth that's, is not being helpful at all. And I get the anger and the frustration of Lane's performance, but I don't necessarily believe it. It's much more hard to believe just because it sounds like an actress doing a thing in the studio. Yeah,
it sounds a bit stiff, kind of.
Yeah, it's a good word for it. It sounds a bit more stiff, and that's where I guess if you're drawn into Wired Lane's pursuit in that part of the show, then that will carry you, and you can kind of overlook the flatter reading. But if we're looking at this from a purely critical perspective, that is definitely the weaker acting performance side than the in real life timid girl voice Lane.
I can see where you're coming from. At the same time, like, even the real life Lane, I think, has a few moments where the line reads are a bit more stiff and stilted. So it kind of evens itself out. I think the more interesting performance of the two, weirdly enough for me, is the Wired Lane. Despite it having those stiff moments. But real life Lane does have her good moments as well. Like, it's a consistency problem. It's a consistency problem.
Yeah, it gets better in the second half, I feel like.
Yes.
Like they've
Yes.
smoothed it out. Specifically in the landscape episode where she's covered in wires and she's talking to Alice about why she kept Alice's memories intact.
Yeah.
And that is a very she's got it at this point. Like the direction, the writing is kind of working in sync to convey the belief that you can transfer your mentality into the internet and that that is the way of the future, while also calling out the fake god guy whose name I cannot remember, voiced by Sparky Thornton. That is
Masami.
Thank you. Is Masami's character. Yeah, that inconsistency is throughout this entire dub. That's going to be a real hurdle if anyone wants to listen to this in English. The Japanese is more consistent, which makes it a better watch overall. But if you're okay with the they're still figuring out as they go through this, then I guess that's the only hurdle you have to get through in the English dub.
Yeah. I mean, I will say it is at least an interesting dub to. It is at least an interesting dub to watch from. I mean, at least from. I know. I guess if you're just like interested in the history of older dubs, because I mean, mentioned before, animes anime isn't quite a history. Again, they would go on to make some of the dubs that are kind of known as being some of the best ever made. So they definitely had a very interesting trajectory. So it is kind of interesting coming back to something like this and seeing. I guess what it was like when they were sort of figuring stuff out.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Can you guys think of anything, not just anime, but anything, like visual media, movie, TV show, anything that you could have pointed to at this time period and said, okay, actors, we're going to be like that?
Absolutely not.
For this, I mean, technically, but again, it's like weird, obtuse art house shit.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. The acting in this is not that different from some of the stuff you'd find in there, where it's often weird and ambiguous on purpose. Kind of that's. I don't disagree with the assessment that some of the performances are uneven. It's just this feels like the kind of thing where that is not necessarily an accident.
Yeah.
For very and sometimes it's an effect that works for you as a viewer. Sometimes it isn't, etc., etc. But like that would be the thing I would kind of point to. Like this is very artsy. It's very ambitious. I can see things that it is definitely coming from, but I agree that aside from maybe a handful of things, like I think Perfect Blue predates this. Like some of the more kind of like artsy, artistic stuff from the 90s that was roughly contemporaneous to this. I don't have a lot of things I could point to and like, this is something from at least the anime scene that this definitely resembles.
I mean, like there. Yeah, I mean, there does from this era, or something before this era.
I'll correct that. I think some of Oishi's movies fall close to this because he's the most art house ass director that anime had.
They are
up until this point, so like, and probably still is. So I'd point to some stuff like that he worked on.
Yeah, like your Angel's Egg, your
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, and I don't know if this would be like final thoughts or not, but I would at least say that there are dubs from like either around or like slightly before this era that I would say are probably like a little stronger than this. I wouldn't even say it's like wholly a product of its time, but it is again just like interesting from a very like clearly anime was like kind of coming into their brand, and in that respect, this is like very interesting to check out, but it definitely does have a lot of technical problems.
Yeah, but before we move to final thoughts, I do want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you guys brought up. I do want to give it up to Bridget for Smug Lane.
Smug Lane. I love
fucking
Smug
hate
Lane.
Smug Lane so goddamn
Smug Lane
much.
needs to get punched into the goddamn sun.
Goddamn face every time she appears. It is so fascinating to hear Bridget use the Lane voice and just make it weird and gross.
Yeah. Especially the scene when, like, again, we've talked about it a couple times. Alice is in her room having her own private time, and then all of a sudden she turns around because she's hearing some laughter and hears Smug Lane sitting on her goddamn bed laughing at her.
Yeah.
Like I want to punch her.
Smug Lane sucks so much, and I think Bridget just captures that beautifully. It's like, we have been on social media. We have met this asshole.
Oh, yeah.
This guy who sucks and is way too online and thinks if you block him, that means he's won.
There's always this one asshole like that.
Yeah, I would say this. I would say that is probably the one aspect of like this show's topic of today. I think is AIDS the best. That's the idea of like you were never truly private on the internet.
I just realized, did we ever state the fact that Ruby Marlowe is a pseudonym for Bridget Hoffman?
Oh yeah.
I think we did earlier.
I couldn't remember if we did. I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure we've been using Bridget for this entire conversation. So
Yeah, we played Koi in some previous episodes of this podcast, where it's like, okay, we'll
it's been 25 years.
Yeah. I feel like it's just like, if we're dealing with does of a certain time period, it's like half the time these aliases weren't even like for union purposes. It was just like, hey, it would just be like, hey, it would be fun to use a name. Yeah. It would be fun to use a pseudonym for this.
Sparky Thornton.
Yeah, I like bringing them up because I think they are interesting and emblematic of the period. But like at this point, except I think for David Bloom and David Lucas, you click on any of these pseudonyms, it brings you to the real actors page.
Right. Right.
Like these are not secrets anymore.
Yeah, it's more like nowadays the pseudonyms are used for like specific reasons. Sometimes it's union reasons, or sometimes it's because they're doing material that they don't necessarily want their real names associated with.
If we had ever gotten to do that episode on interspecies reviewers that we were supposed to do, we would have totally we would have kept the pseudonyms. We would not have spoiled that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
boy.
Never gonna get that.
I know.
Kusabi stares off in the distance.
So do we want to move on to final? So Bridget's Wonderful is Smug Lane. That and Masami are like my favorite performances in this, just because they're the worst. They're just the fucking worst.
Punch him into the sun. It's fine.
It is 100%. So weird. It is weird hearing Bridget say lines like who wants to know what she's thinking about when she plays with herself, or I'm committing suicide.
Oh yeah, those are some fun lines, man.
You're right. Bridget is very good at Smug Lane. It's a shame that she wasn't like more prominent throughout the show, just for the troll factor of it.
Do we want to move on to final thoughts?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Who wants to go first?
I think I'll go last, just because there is something I'm gonna bring up that's probably gonna make some of you very upset.
Okay. All right, I'll go ahead then. This is I'm gonna make one point on this. I think I've gotten all my thoughts about the dub out there. If you're okay with older sounding dubs and the cryptic language that explains the tech mentality that's going into this show, then you will dig the dub and you will survive just fine. But what I wanted to end off with is the way to understand this show. If you guys ever read the books Jumanji and The Polar Express?
I have not read the books, but
I've
not read the book. Not read the books, but I am evidently familiar with the Jumanji movie.
I have read the books.
Excellent.
Continue.
Okay. Well, I bring them both up because they are both written by a Grand Rapids, Michigan native called Chris Van Allsburg. And the reason I bring this up is because he has a habit of writing very surreal children's books like Jumanji and The Polar Express. One of the books that he wrote is called The Mysteries of Harris Burdick. And what it is it's a book where it's just one picture, the title, and a caption framed as if they are like fragments of lost stories that's supposed to let your mind interpret what is supposed to happen in the stories. And it's like, they're not interconnected stories, they're individual stories. Like, one of them is about a ship that gets lost in the canals of Venice. One of them has like floating chairs with a nun on them. The reason I bring that up is because the way to interpret Lane is to think of each episode as its own individual chapter of a philosophy course, and you just need to pay attention to the title of the episode and the first line that's said by the omnipresent narrator throughout of it. If you can pay attention to that, you will understand the themes that each episode is trying to get to. The psych episode is all about trying to get a sense about what is real and what isn't real. The distortion episode is all about, like, the internet is the next stage of human evolution. So take that as your way to interpret the show. We've talked about the dub as it is right now. I love it, and that mentality, that little way to interpret each episode is the way I was able to mostly understand what the show's individual themes were trying to be.
This is why I like being friends with you, Noah. Love some Mysteries of Harrisburg comparisons.
Absolutely. So yes, and that's all I have to say about that.
All right, Steph, you want to go?
Oh boy. Good lord, what do I even say? So, as I've pretty much alluded to throughout the course of this episode, the show and its story is very poignant even today when you look at things such as the advent of technology, the internet, our relationship with the internet and technology, and even the themes and philosophical things about your identity and existential crises, such as with your identity and your sense of self. So, as a story and themes, Lain is just as prevalent now as it is 25 years ago. Like, that's not a question. When it comes Jesus Christ. When it comes to how the modern day anime fan and viewers should go into the show, if they do decide to, just know it is a very slow burn. Do not try to marathon this show. It is not a show you can marathon. Absolutely not. Even I had a very difficult... I said this earlier. I had a very difficult time trying to get to this show myself for the first time fully.
Sure.
And I was doing it in 3-episode batches. Like,
yeah.
It is not a show you should, like, straight marathon. Especially with some of the themes and stuff. It's more thought-provoking than anything. So the show requires you not only to kind of understand some of those basic philosophies, but also you should allow yourself some time to digest some of what it's trying to say. In terms of the dub, it has not aged very well, unfortunately. It is very inconsistent. I don't like using the phrase "a product of its time," but it very much is. Because of the lack of consistency, and because of the fact that the focus on performances was more to match the Japanese rather than really kind of express what's going on in the show and tell the story to an English audience, it ends up being a detriment overall. There are some shining moments in the dub, don't get me wrong. There are some shining moments. The script is actually a really good adaptation for what it is, especially with all of the subject matter involved. It's just because in terms of dubbing history, because it is in this weird, in this little early state where English dubs aren't really being treated like I guess for lack of better phrasing, like the star quality that you see today and how they're produced and made. Like, it might also turn some viewers off. I know I had a hard time with it at points, but if you are into shows like Lain and you can tolerate the inconsistencies of the dub, you're going to get enjoyment out of this. What I do know is I'm not going to be watching this show again for a while, but I feel like when the time comes for me to just have a rewatch just for shits and giggles, there will probably be things that I pick up more so on another watch rather than I did the first time. So your mileage is going to vary with the show 100%, and your mileage is going to vary with this dub. Like, that's really it.
I will say the kind of people who want to rewatch this are going to be like, do you miss the mid-90s? Like, do you miss grunge? Do you miss art, avant-garde music videos? Do you miss trippy guitar music playing over people contemplating about analog technology of the day? Then this is the show for you.
Do I have a show for you, boys and girls?
I really like this show. This, like, Lain in general is a thing that, like, it appeals to me. It's probably one of those things that is why I like watching this when I was a teenager on Tech TV. Is probably part of the reason I enjoy this kind of crap. I think the dub is a solid dub for what the show requires. I do think that means it is a little clunky. It is also very clearly from like the late 90s. If you're into this sort of artsy bullshit, I think that might be a little easier to kind of get over some of its flaws. And if nothing else, I think it is a very interesting timepiece of where anime dubbing was kind of in that late 90s period where like Cowboy Bebop's coming out soon. I think there's, you're starting to get a little, you start working you're on the path to like, nowadays anime dubs are all pretty consistently at least good. Mm-hmm. Like you very rarely see really wretched anime dubs anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel like kind of this is made around the time where I feel like that ascent to that peak starts really happening on a more consistent level. It's not quite there yet though, and I think this is kind of an interesting like peak at kind of where it was before that ascent really started to become noticeable.
Would you say that the show is like a relic of the OVA era that we had in the late 80s for anime?
It does. I mean, it feels a little bit like that. Just like this is one of these things where sometimes I think it's like it's weird this was on TV.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of anime is at like, it's broadcast at like 2 a.m. and it's mostly aimed at otaku, so like, limited audience in the first place, but it's almost kind of like, it's weird that there was a period where something like this was viewed as even broadly commercial in some capacity. Like, this will be on TV, we'll put out DVDs, we are making it in some capacity to make some kind of money. Like it is also kind of an interesting example of like just a style of anime I think that has long since fallen out of favor, barring random one-offs like Sunny Boy that are basically the product of a guy who worked his butt off doing adaptations and then got to do a passion project.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anything else by the same director it looks exactly like this. Not the same like techno cyberpunk look to it, but Ryutaro Nakamura really liked this sketchy comic booky looking animation. So if you like that look, check out those other stuff like Kino's Journey or the original Life of Cusco Midori anime movie. Very interesting director.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will also say I do enjoy. I am a fan of Yoshitoshi Abe's like art style.
Yes,
and it is always very interesting to see how on shows where he's not also the director, how people interpret his character designs. Because you can get some like I feel like 5 years ago there was some time travel show that was just kind of middling that had them, and it kind of turned them into very like generic.
Yeah, Era Dead, the episode that never fucking happened with us
because none of us cared enough to bother.
Oh yeah, that was a hard one. Yeah, oh yeah. You want to talk about boring shows? In slow burns. Holy fuck.
But like he did the designs for that, and in the actual show they're kind of generic looking. Like you can't quite you wouldn't know they were by him if someone didn't tell you. And I like this goes in the opposite direction where it just kind of leans into all like. It just makes them more weird. Like all the big eyes just get kind of like everyone's staring at you like they've just been horribly traumatized. Like I find that looked very interesting.
And then you have Haibane Renmei.
Exactly. Which he directed, which is why it looks like that.
I love the best example of his style.
Jet, do you want to go?
Yeah. So this is pretty interesting to come back to. I haven't seen the show in quite a few years. I don't even remember exactly what it was I watched it the first time, but it was interesting to come back to it. The dub is again, I feel like saying product of its time isn't like quite right, because I mean there are dubs from this time period that aren't quite as shaky as this is. So like I don't know, with product of the time is quite the apt description. And again, as mentioned before, anime's style would develop into pretty major ways as they went along, and even pretty closely following this dub. So, it's definitely a very interesting time in their developmental period. But it's definitely not their best work, which is kind of unfortunate. But it is, it is at least serviceable for the type of show this is. And if you're interested in checking the show itself out, like it'll do you fine. It probably won't it probably won't completely turn you off if you're just interested in the show in general.
I think as a piece of history, not just like anime history, but like dubbing history, it's a very interesting thing to look at from a technical standpoint in that regard.
Yeah. And as for the show itself, it's definitely interesting and kind of weird sort of art house thing you don't really see made a lot these days, because it's definitely not the sort of thing that's as commercially viable as it used to be in the 90s. But it's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting to watch, and there's parts of this that are like really poignant and really interesting to reflect, and really interesting to reflect to the modern day, and so definitely ahead of its time in some respect.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, if you want to watch Lane,
And why wouldn't you after this glowing recommendation?
well, you can get the Pioneer release, which is super out of print. You can get the Genion release, which is super out of print. You can get the Funimation release, which is super out of print. And it is not one of the Funimation titles that it's made its leap over to Crunchyroll. So currently, if you want to watch this legally, you will need to brush off your old Funimation subscription and watch it there. Full disclosure, part of the reason I wanted to do this is because this might realistically be the last time we can cover this show under our own rules.
Yeah, that's
I don't
fair.
have a lot of faith in this being like, Discotech might pick it up at some point. I don't know, but I don't see this as one of the ones CR is going to bother re-upping for when the license runs out.
No, yeah, when I was
Probably
when I was talking to Andrew about it yesterday in terms of availability, he thinks that because it hasn't switched over to Crunchyroll yet, they're probably just going to let the license lapse. So
I find that very plausible, and that's kind of
Yeah.
why I wanted to get it in. Under
no,
the wire.
100%.
Yeah.
I will say that if you're looking on the used video market, it would probably be less expensive to hunt down the Pioneer Genion DVD release than it would be the Blu-ray
Yes.
release, because the Funimation
Yes.
Blu-ray release, especially the LE that they put out back in like 2009, 2010 or something, is a lot
No,
more
it was
expensive.
it was 2012.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was 2012,
I-
and then the
I
anime
remember-
anime classics
I remember
version.
I remember this because one of the first conversations I ever had with Hardy was arguing about it being a limited release.
Yeah, I just remember a whole bunch of people just being mad about that release for some reason or another.
It was expensive. That's all
It was
pricey.
I think it was on the early onset of those like bigger like limited release kind of things for Funimation at the time. I think that might have been it. But when I looked at the Lane stuff earlier, the LE version that Funimation put out was 2012, and then 2 years later, the Anime Classics version, which is the one I have actually, was 2014. That was when that one came out. So you might be able to find the Anime Classics version potentially at reasonable price, but the LE set, oh, good fucking luck.
Yeah, if you're hunting around, I would suggest trying to keep an eye out for the DVDs. I think there are probably more of them, and they are probably a little easier to come by for not like comically overpriced prices.
Especially since the Blu-ray versions exist. Can I also say we never fucking talked about this real quick? If you watch the Blu-ray like upscale of it, it is fucking gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
There is nothing fucking funnier than watching the bits in the opening that are clearly like a camera pointed at a shitty VHS dub of some animation they did in glorious high definition. It is so weird.
It is so crisp and clean. The Blu-ray render
Where are the
is so
scat lines?
gorgeous.
Where's the static? Where, I ask
This
you?
is by far the prettiest the show has ever looked. So in that regard, the
Yes.
Blu-ray is worth tracking down if you can find it, but also it will be very expensive, which is very
Yes.
sad.
And the streaming version is like Blu-ray level quality.
Yes,
it's
the
more
streaming version is clearly high def.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which raises the question about what you should watch, because I watched both the Genion DVD release, which is what I have the home media release for, and on the Funimation website, just to kind of contrast the two. The Funimation version looks much nicer, absolutely. And if you're more inclined to watch stuff that's in pristine HD quality, there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like watching it in that format kind of ruins the effect of what they were going for. Like, they were clearly going for a scrappy cyberpunk late 90s look to it, and that kind of fits with watching it on the DVD release.
I appreciate the HD upgrade that it like if you're gonna put on Blu-ray, that's the way to go. But like Lane, it does feel like kind of a show where the best way to watch it is on like your friend taped it off TV and the commercials are still there. Like that kind of feels like that feels like the real way to watch Lane.
So I got curious and wanted to see how much the Blu-ray was going for.
Oh no, what'd you find?
Yeah, so I checked Amazon. Apparently it's going for $123 right now, which is actually less than I was expecting.
Which version? Is it the LE or the Anime Classics one?
Yeah, the classic one is going for $123.
Okay, that's not bad. That all things considered. I think what was it? Andrew looked up the other day or something for shits and giggles. Like the LE set. Someone looked it up. I don't remember if it was Andrew or one of you guys. Like the LE was going for like at easily $200 or more. Somebody
Sounds
looked
about
it up.
That's still less than I would expect.
It was our friend Greg.
It was a friend. What did he say that they saw for the LE set for Lane?
I don't know if it was Ellie or not, but they said some of it was going up to 200.
Yeah, 200. It might be the classics version.
But either way,
Anyways.
Because Jet found one for like 123. But anyway, sorry.
if it goes out of print, we are not going to condemn you if you decide to go.
It is
the
out
other
of
route.
print.
No,
It
I mean,
is
I'm sorry,
out of
if
print.
If it's not streaming legally anymore, sorry.
Okay, that's
For viewers at home, I don't know what you do in your spare time, nor do I particularly care. Use your best judgment. Anyways, you should, however, seek out our stuff. We're easy to find.
Hell yeah.
You can find us here on YouTube, where you're probably watching us, or on your favorite podcast catcher, where you're probably listening to us. We are also on Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, blah blah blah. We're probably gonna try and get a Blue Sky account at some point, and maybe elsewhere if Twitter finally implodes. Who knows? Question mark shruggies.
We
However,
refuse to call it
what-
the new name. We refuse to call
Uh,
it Twitter
that's-
the
It's
new
it's
name.
always Twitter. Let's be real.
I don't fucking care if the stadium downtown is technically the Garden. It's the Fleet Center. Like it's Fleet Center.
I don't
Fleet Center
care.
now.
I don't care if that one bridge is called the Mario Cuomo Bridge. It's the fucking Tappan Z. All right.
Exactly.
I don't care what they call the Chicago Tower. It will always be the Sears Tower. You can't make me call it the Willis Tower.
Yeah, exactly,
We all-
exactly.
We all understand this incentive.
Yes.
It makes sense. Anyways, but what we do have that is consistent is, well, for one, we have a Ko-fi where you can make a one-time donation to help support us, and we also have a Patreon if you want to make more, long-term donations to us. And if you donate enough money, you'll get your name read out on an episode, like so. Thank you to our $5 patrons, Megan's mom and dad, Michelle Travis, and Victor Maybaroda, and thank you to our $10 patrons, Anthony Brown, Holly Lesticow, Julia W., Quinoa Soup, Marissa Lenti, and Otaku Anthony. You're all very lovely. Friends, where can we find you on the internet?
You can follow me on Twitter. I'm going to still call it Twitter, at Noah Clue. Love to discuss things like pimping the Lackadaisy Kickstarter, which, I'm sorry, it's not a Kickstarter, it's a Backer It account. But basically, if it's still going at this point and you haven't donated to it, donate to Lackadaisy because they need to get all the support. They just passed $1 million as of today. I want to get them to $2 million.
Nice.
Yeah.
Give
that's
Spike
right.
Trotman your money.
Cat videos forever.
Exactly. Steph, do you want to go?
Sure. My name is Stephanie. Also, sometimes on the internet, I am known as Lilac. You can follow me on Twitter because I'm calling that still forever and always. You can't fucking change my mind, Musk. You can follow me on Twitter at Lilac Anime Review, with review being spelled REVUE. I also have a TikTok account. Hello. I also have a TikTok account, the same username, where I post either one of three things. Either me doing random fucking TikTok filters, videos of my cat, because he's adorable and also a gremlin child, and videos of my escapades seeing Broadway shows, because I'm insane like that. Also, and I know Amon did not mention this, at the time of recording this specific episode, and hopefully if we can get things back up and running on our end, Andrew and I will be back streaming on Twitch by this point, on the Dub Talk Podcast Twitch account, if you want to go and check us out playing games from there. At the time of recording this, I think our plan is to do the second season of Telltale's Batman, and then after that, I think we might be tackling Project Raincoat. I think that's the current plan. But we just got a new capture card, and I got to test it in the next few days. So, see if it works. But yeah, that's all I'm doing.
All right, Jet?
As for me, you can find me on Twitter at DivineNega, where I'll usually just be, ranting about anime, cartoons, or politics, or something, I don't know. You can also find me in other podcasts today, where usually we talk about anime news alongside Balloon Dump Top Source Andrew. And a new thing, well, I guess new by the time I'm recording this, I have a new blog I started a few months ago, The Nerdy Abyss, where mostly for the moment I'm just kind of talking about whatever Shonen Jump manga I'm reading, so
Nice!
so I guess if you feel like reading my ramblings about that, you can look forward to that, I guess.
But which
Cool.
version of Jet is it? Is it the U? Is it the wired version? Is it the angry
Or is it,
Jet
or
version?
is
the
it
happy
Smug
version?
Jet? Is it Smug
troll
Jet?
Smug Jet? You'll never know.
Oh no, not Smug Jet.
You will never know.
Yeah, I'd be smelled for like 5 seconds and like immediately cry about it.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh shit.
And you can find me, Amon. I'm at Amon Duel US on Twitter. I'm also on Blue Sky and co-host if you prefer those sites now. I post about movies and comic books and crap, and I also like talking about music. And I have a belabored, dusty old song to talk about. The music in the show is great.
We
I love all of
barely
it.
talked about the guitar work on this. This show is awesome. As far
This
as
is
music
great.
goes.
This is the opening Duvet by Boa has been one of my like all-time anime openings basically
Yes.
since I saw it. Like it's great.
It's gorgeous.
Fun fact about Boa, they are not Japanese. They're a British band.
You don't say.
Oh!
And actually, they have famous people connections, apparently. I found this out doing research. The two of the members are the guitar player Steve Rogers, who's one of the founders. And after they were around for a while, his sister Jasmine ended up joining. And they're the kids of a guy named Paul Rogers, who you might know for 3 things.
Okay.
He was the lead singer of the band Free, of the song All Right Now fame.
Okay.
He was the lead singer of Bad Company, if you're familiar with them.
Oh, okay.
And for a decent long while, he was the lead vocalist of the reformed version of Queen.
Oh
like,
my
the
god!
2000s.
Okay, yeah.
So if you saw them during the Paul Rogers plus the Queen plus Paul Rogers years, he's that Paul Rogers.
Oh damn. Okay.
That was weird because like Paul Rogers is a very good singer, but he's not the kind of person I would pick to replace Freddie Mercury. But I did hear some performances like he's not bad. He's just
Now, to be
I don't
fair,
know, the energy's weird.
To be fair, who could you get to replace Freddie Mercury, whose name is not
look,
David Bowie?
Look, I will
Adam
just say
Lambert?
I'm gonna say when Paul Rogers stopped doing it, they replaced him with Adam Lambert, and I thought that's more who I'd pick to replace Freddie
About to
Mercury.
say,
That
have
makes
you
more sense.
never seen Adam Lambert performing with Queen? He's actually really good.
I haven't. I have not. I'm sorry.
He's
a little
actually
classical
really
snob.
good.
I'll take your word for it.
However, Boa are great, but they're not the person I want to champion this episode. For that, I want to go to a different person. This got a couple of soundtracks released, my favorite of which is Siberia Mix, which is basically like a fake dance mix that as of would have been played in the Siberia Club in the show.
Yeah.
As far as I know, some of the music by there is by Akira Takemoto, who does like the regular soundtrack, but a bunch of the songs in there are by a guy named Chikada JJ Wasei. He is actually in the show. JJ, the DJ from Siberia, is played by this guy.
No shit!
Japanese.
I was wondering if that
Oh,
JJ
cool.
was a reference. At first, I thought
That's
it was
interesting.
Yes, no, that is literally him in the show.
That's funny. Okay.
So you're telling me that he was literally playing music, JJ style.
God. Okay, that's it. Noah,
You're funny, I like
get the
you.
fuck out.
Okay.
However, he is a real DJ, and since starting in like the late 2010s, he basically started making kind of sequel DJ mixes in the vein of that Siberia Club mix. And for a while, he was actually doing he'd do weekly live streams on his YouTube channel where he would do club mixes basically. They're fun stuff. Like if you're into that kind of like late 90s sort of dance stuff, check him out. He's good. He's a legit guy.
All right.
All right, so thank you for this extremely long ramble about a very old show you haven't heard of.
Yeah.
We hope you all had fun. Now, if you excuse me, I have to go ruin people's lives because I'm an asshole on the internet.
Aww. But that's okay.
I know, I'm disappointed in me too.
Aw,
That's okay. We'll all
that's sad
be-
day.
We'll all be interconnected. We'll all be sharing in the assholery together. It is just our re-emergence of everyone being one and the same as it was the beginning and will be in the end of time.
Let's all love Lane. Let's all love Lane. Let's all love Lane. Let's all love Lane.
Gobble, google, gobble, we accept one of us.
What the fuck's what? Rocco for Boston, rock on Chicago. Good night, folks.
Hello.
Otaku on my friends. Good night, everybody.
Rest in peace, Triangle Staff.
Rest in peace.